Welcome in. It's the Yahoo NBA Deeper Dive looking at this 5-game slate on a Thursday night. I'm here, but more importantly, so is Matt LaMarca. And Jordan's producing. Yahoo is powering everything that we're going to be doing over the next 30 minutes or so as we get you ready for tonight's, again, 5-game slate, but a lot of value out there, a lot of places for, I'm sure, Matt already scouring from stars through scrubs, places that we can find and build a quality lineup, which Jordan will be doing in the background on Yahoo. Always a pleasure, my friend. Hope all is well with you, Matt.
Yeah, doing well. Nice to see you too, sir. Big time stars and scrubs night shaping up here. LeBron getting ruled out makes the Lakers certainly an appealing target. Plenty of studs to target there. And then we're monitoring the Joel Embiid situation. Second leg of a back-to-back. He's been questionable in every game this season, but it does feel like there's more rest concern with him tonight than there has been.
Absolutely. And we'll keep an eye on other guys that are playing through injury, by all means, if they're not also dealing with the GTD next to them, especially on Yahoo as we'll look and build this. But just looking at it specifically to Embiid, because I think as a guy who you mentioned LeBron James being out, so a lot of focus on Anthony Davis, assuming, he's a healthy go as well. But Embiid right there at the top as far as the highest price guy on the floor. Let's assume that he does go. And this is kind of where I'm curious, not necessarily in relation to Bam and Gobert and even Christian Wood to a lesser extent on the slate, but just to your approach about Embiid, Matt. Let's assume that Embiid is ruled in. It is still what you mentioned. Second night of a back-to-back. He's been questionable every single game. If in fact he goes, it's hard to think, oh, and by the way, they're at Detroit. It's hard to think that he's still going to live up to that salary number.
Yeah, and our projections have him, clearly behind guys like Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. If you're paying up all the way at the top on this slate, but I would still be interested in Embiid if he's going to suit up. Right. We're talking about a guy who since the start of last season has averaged more than 2 fantasy points per minute with Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris off the court. So tons and tons of upside with this guy. If he does play, I think that his ownership will be way down compared to what it was yesterday. So I would have some interest in him if he is active. I understand the risk, but I still think the reward is too tantalizing to potentially pass up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that you can't fade him and completely take him out of lineups by any means. And if people are getting into high volume lineups, then maybe there's a little bit of a different standard of that. And look, we'll come back to him and talk about him more in comparison to other guys on the slate. And maybe we will get some information in there. But you're right. I mean, here in Philadelphia, might as well use the one time that it's going to come up a value where I am and covering a team, that there's a general belief that he's not going to play. I don't know what's taking so long, but again, once we get to the center position, we look at both angles of it. He plays, he doesn't, bumping up Andre Drummond to elsewhere on there. But as we do, let's start here at the point guard spot. Stars and scrubs is how we've built this with you throughout the Yahoo Deeper Dives. Again, at the top, we're going to see Russ, Trae Young there. There's going to be an opportunity to definitely attack the stars element of it. But what side, the stars or the scrubs, do you find yourself leaning towards more with the point guard spot?
Both. How's that for an answer?
I love it. Well, it means that you have a good explanation for it. That's what it tells me.
Yes. Russell Westbrook for sure deserves stud consideration. His fantasy production jumps massively with LeBron off the court this season. Usage rate is up almost over 6% in that situation. So he's averaging right around 54 fantasy points per game in his 2 games without LeBron. So he's somebody you have to be interested in. By the way, against the Thunder, not sure if, Russ is a revenge game guy or not, but he seems kind of spiteful, right? He might have a little hatred in his heart for the Thunder.
I could see that.
But there are also some tremendous values on this slate at point guard, right? You look at Shake Milton as the minimum, right? And the team said that his minutes cap was gone. It didn't really materialize in their last game. He played under 20 minutes, but Milton for the minimum, I think, is very appealing. Tyrese Maxey at $19. Minutes certainly not an issue for him right now. He played 37 minutes in their last game. So I think you've got those two guys to go with Russell Westbrook at the top. I think that is sort of the way to attack point guard tonight.
Okay. It makes sense when you have a smaller slate. Now, I was going to say, is that a strategy that you find yourself applying to more 5-6 game slates, or does it not really matter and it's more of a night to night basis if you have a 10 to 13 game slate?
Yeah, it's more just what kind of presents itself in terms of value. Like, I don't want to force in guys that are $10 on Yahoo just because they're $10. I want them to have, upside and outs to paying off their salary. And I think that with all the injuries that we have at the moment, like, there's plenty of that. So right. That kind of just naturally opens itself up to a stars and scrubs night. But if there were guys who were priced in the mid-range that I thought were, better values, I would have no qualms about going in that direction on a 5-game slate. It's really just whatever's being dealt to you.
Yeah, Maxey too. I see it popping up here as far as in the background, just different options as you get lower there. And look, I do see the news, people talking about this, right? Isaiah Joe had tested positive. So I don't know what this means across the board, right? I guess there's still a chance that the entire team doesn't play tonight and that this game doesn't happen tonight. Technically, whenever you see something like this, right? We've already seen Harris out earlier.
Sure. Yep.
So, not to go full Aaron Rodgers on this thing and say the whole thing falls apart, but there is something to that. Or at the very least, there's a possibility that these guys could be stripped down to like a 6 to 7 man roster, which means a lot of value for guys who are in that 6 to 7 man roster, right?
For sure. Yeah, this is a situation that you're going to want to pay attention to right up until lineup lock. And I'm sure the guys that are on for the deeper dive and live before lock will be monitoring that situation closely, and can let you know sort of the best ways to target the team depending on what kind of news pops up.
All right. So anything else, low cost, super punt option that we should look at if in fact, or before I should say, we move to the 2-guard?
Well, from an ownership perspective, Chris Paul is popping right now. Chris Paul, surprisingly playing decent minutes here to start the year. He's logged 36 minutes in back-to-back games. Kind of odd that they're pushing him this hard so early in the year, but he's been great on a per-minute basis. Excellent matchup tonight versus the Rockets, who have played at the fastest pace in the league this season. So I understand why he's catching, a pretty solid ownership projection here. But to me, there's no argument to be made. You just pay the extra $13 and you get to Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move to the 2 spot here. Donovan Mitchell at the top, though. There's injury concern, of course, still listed as questionable. I don't know if you're hearing a lean towards playing or not, but we should start there, at least from a health standpoint, before we look at other guys across the slate.
Yeah, I don't have any sources, unfortunately. This would be the one time where I wish I was from Salt Lake City. No disrespect if we have any Salt Lakers out there in the chat, but
no, they know if anything. So
Mitchell seems like the kind of guy that wants to be out there if possible. So I always, with a guy like him would give the edge towards him playing. But again, we'll follow the updates. If he does suit up, he's been super aggressive offensively recently, right? A usage rate of at least 36% in 3 straight games. He's up over 40% in 2 of those. So he's been hunting his shot. This matchup versus the Hawks isn't great. The Hawks play slow, very slow. But $39 is fair for him. That's a fair price tag. So if he's in the lineup, I would have no problems with you rostering him. If you wanted to go with a little bit of a different roster construction, because I do think that, the Westbrooks and the Anthony Davises of the world will make some of this, $30 to $40 tier underappreciated.
Hit that thumbs up button, please. Make sure you're subscribed here as well. We'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that Sixers-Pistons game and any other news or information, including, as Matt just mentioned here, with Donovan Mitchell. And that's where, you look at what you said as far as fair value for Mitchell as far as his salary is concerned. I know it's early, like super, super early, but is there anybody on at least this position throughout the 5-game slate that is more overpriced than Cade Cunningham right now?
No. And it's one of those things where he's such a value on, I believe, DraftKings at 4K, right? Like,
yeah,
people might play him just because all they've heard that Cade Cunningham is a good play. So they're not doing the work on, sort of price adjustments and such. And that could end up like we're projecting Cade Cunningham for about 5% ownership. There's the rake tonight.
Yep.
I'm not, no disrespect to Cade Cunningham, but he's been terrible. So there are so many more guys I would rather play. Like Tyler Hero is $1 more. Play Tyler Hero over Cade Cunningham.
No, it's great. All right, so let's start to find some value here. And I don't think there's any disrespect when you're calling it out and the numbers and the data are behind it by all means. So start to look at some other value here that maybe makes sense as far as, mid-range cost guys. And we saw this the other night, last night, technically, where Seth Curry comes out, 22 points. You look at him at $17. I still think that he's probably more, once this offense continues to show that it can click without having Ben as the facilitator, that Curry's going to be more of like a $19 to $20 guy. So I look at him as maybe a place to at least start, Matt, as far as somebody in that mid-range salary that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, I love Steph Curry. I think he's Seth Curry. I do love Steph Curry.
He's shooting like Steph, though, to be fair.
One of the more underrated players in the league, right? I mean, the floor spacing that he provides this 76ers team is just so needed. And he really has been a fantastic addition for their team. So if Embiid is ruled out, Curry becomes an elite option. He's probably in play even with Embiid active. But if Embiid's out, Curry's increased his usage rate by about 7.5% with Embiid and Tobias off the floor this season, averaging more than a fantasy point per minute. So love Seth Curry in this spot. If you want to go even cheaper with the 76ers, Korkmaz is an option too. Again, value's not going to be the issue tonight, right? There's plenty of guys we could choose from, but Seth Curry at 17, if Joel Embiid is out, one of the strongest plays on the slate.
If you need to, and I don't know if you have to, and this is to your point there about you don't really necessarily have to find value tonight, but building, if it's a lot of stars elsewhere, could you get to somebody in that $10 range? Again, not necessarily being prodded to Duncan Robinson, somebody in that level.
Yeah, Duncan Robinson is probably okay at 10. We have him grading out okay in our projections. I might go with Malik Monk instead, though, at 10, right? We've seen him start in place of LeBron in the 2 games that LeBron missed. He averaged, he was up over 32 minutes in both of those contests. So I might go with Monk if I was forced to pick a $10 player, but I do think you're better off trying to get the extra 2, get up to Korkmaz if you can.
Forced is the operative word here, right? Because you don't need to. This is a short 5-game slate where nobody is putting you in any corner here and saying, all right, we need $10 plays. We need punts here, by all means. So let's move to the 3. Now, LeBron is out. That does open some things up. Jimmy Butler is the highest priced guy on the slate. And projections aside, Boston, we know, is going to give up points. So if they get blown out early, then maybe you have to factor that in. But at the very least, we know Boston scores, which is great, but they give up points as much as anybody in the league. So I don't know if that would factor into you getting to more Jimmy Butler tonight than not.
Yeah, one of the biggest surprises of the season, right? Because they've been a good defensive team in the past, but this year they're down around 26th in defensive efficiency. So I do think that Butler is a smidged overpriced at 43 compared to, Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook specifically. But Jimmy Butler has been fantastic to start the year, right? Career high in points per game, career high in rebounds per game. almost 3 steals a night. He's handing out assists. Like, Jimmy Butler's a very good basketball player. I'm probably going to be underweight on him. We have him projected for about 24% ownership. I'm going to have more Davis and Westbrook. Like, that's just a fact with no LeBron James, that I think it's kind of hard to match those two guys in terms of upside. But would it shock me if Butler, paid off his salary once again? No, it wouldn't shock me.
All right. So beyond that top level, where do you start to look for? And again, it's not value, but where do you start to look for that middle ground here where you can spend a 24 for Saddiq Bey, a 20 for Josh Giddey, and still get to other higher price guys around the slate?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Josh Giddey's game. I think that the dude can play. He's already had a double-double against the Lakers this season. He went for 18 and 10 assists in his first matchup versus the Lakers. Over a fantasy point per minute type of guy to start his career. So I think Giddey is definitely in play at $20. I think he's a very strong option if you wanted to go with a mid-range play at small forward. I also like Jayshawn Tate at 17. I'm going back to the Jayshawn Tate well. Every time I think I'm out, the guy pulls me back in.
Yes.
Just like he did last night with a 35-point performance over 35 minutes. So I think Tate and Giddey are the two sort of mid-range small forwards that I like the most here.
I know that, again, the whole thing is that you're not forced to by any means, but just looking as we kind of continue through the slate, we'll get to the 4 and the 5. Hit that thumbs up button, please. It's all we ask in return. And really make sure you're subscribed here. This is the Yahoo version of the Deeper Dive. Coming up, Josh and Adam, and then we have Live Before Lock right up till this slate, this 5-game slate lock. So everything that you have out there that's outside of Yahoo will get answered. But for the purposes of what we're doing now, it's all here with Matt for Yahoo. And below that range here, and this is not just a reason for me to insert Matisse Thybulle into the conversation, so I won't even start with him by any means. But, in that range, look, Korkmaz, and I saw the news got in the house, and thank you for the reminder on that. Korkmaz is a GTD tonight. Korkmaz is dealing with a wrist injury. So between COVID and being hurt, the Sixers may really only have like the 7, I guess, is it 7 or 8 minimum?
How close are you to the stadium? Can you get down there in time?
It's in Detroit. No. They couldn't pay me enough to pick up and go right now. But no, that's it. Yeah, we'll continue to get more as far as the whole team in COVID testing. But yeah, between that, this might be default. He just comes off a 30-plus minute night last night against Chicago. So again, I'm not even trying to insert him, but anybody in that range where if you were looking beyond where the two guys you mentioned, anything in that lower punt range that even catches your eye?
No, for sure. I mean, you have to be interested in Thybulle tonight, right? He's priced at $11 and he played almost 40 minutes last night, 38 minutes. 5% usage rate, not ideal, right? But he's so good at all the other stuff, right? He can rack up those defensive stats. He had 3 steals and 2 blocks. He had a couple of boards. So you can live with a 5% usage rate on a guy when he is $11 and he's playing 38 minutes. You can live with that. So I think Thybulle is very much in play. You've got Kent Bazemore priced at the minimum now. He should see some more shots and some more minutes without LeBron. And then DeAndre Hunter is priced at the minimum. He might be sort of my favorite. He went off, his minutes got up to 33 in their last game. He put up over 30 fantasy points. Like, he's just a very good basketball player. And as he gets more reacclimated into that Hawks rotation, he's going to have some big nights. So I think getting him at $10, even in a tough matchup against the Jazz, I really like him.
All right, let's move to the 4 here. Mentioned Anthony Davis. Still technically, he's playing. He's probable. It would take a lot for him to not play through that ankle. LeBron James is out. But looking at the 4, Tobias Harris not playing tonight, so he's off the slate, that $31 price. Still, John Collins playing through that foot injury as well tonight out in Utah, or pardon me, it's in Atlanta against the Jazz. So even guys at the top, as far as what you're paying for, are going and dealing through injury from probable to questionable. How do you approach this position with even Tatum coming off the back-to-back?
Yeah, I think for me, it's you pay up for Anthony Davis here, or you go down. There's again no shocker here, but there's some injury value available. Davis is just he excels without LeBron on the court. He's up to 55 fantasy points per game in his 2 games without LeBron this season. $48, while it's expensive, it's probably pretty appropriate for him, on a LeBron-less night. Like, to me, the difference between him and Jason Tatum should be greater than $5 with the news that LeBron is out, right? And I'm sure that will be rectified in the future. So yeah, like, to me, there's no question that you're paying up for Davis. If you're paying up, I don't think, unfortunately, Tatum can really match him.
All right, if you're not paying up for Davis, where do you start to look? I mean, we'll assume that this is not the LeBron James is out, therefore Carmelo Anthony breaks the slate night. George Niang, I think, has some really sneaky good value because he's like the offensive version of Thibault, which you just mentioned, where he's going to be out there for 30 plus minutes, but at least he could get you 18 to 22 minutes in that crazy amount of time. Is there somebody again, if you're not getting, as you mentioned, you're either getting to Anthony Davis or not. If you're not getting to AD at the top, where do you start to look to save some money?
Yeah, I do think you can play Melo. I am, that I'm from
biased,
New York,
man. See,
no, I'm not. Wait
a second. You're from New York.
I'm not a Melo guy. I'm not a Melo guy. Never have been. He's fine. He doesn't really do anything for me at 15, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would rather go with Niang at 11, or if you need to go even cheaper, Kenyon Martin, $10. We're talking about the injuries with the Lakers, with the 76ers, but Daniel Tice also out tonight, kind of a sneaky under the radar injury that's going to open up some playing time in their front court. Kenyon Martin played about 28 minutes in the Rockets' last game. And he can do some things on a per minute basis. He's, just under 0.9 fantasy points per minute. So I like him. I would say that Niang is probably my favorite at 11, but I think you have some options here if you want to explore a few different players in this low tier.
We have the center spot to hit again coming up. You've got the full deeper dive with Josh and Adam. And speaking of Adam, his deeper dive is available each and every day for you for free. We have the Thursday Night Football Showdown, single game player rankings, our NBA player projections tonight, all free across the board, our NHL top stacks. But Adam's deeper dive free each and every day. So you should be reading that and then using it accordingly as you build your rosters here. All right, let's look at this, man. We talked about Embiid from an Embiid standpoint, Matt, but now just looking at here on the slate, let's assume to start this conversation that we get news he's ruled out. That's a 7:00 tip Eastern time, so nothing is going to lock at a time. It's not like it's a 10:00 Eastern where you're screwed if you lock him in. What happens? Where do you approach the center spot immediately hearing the news that Embiid's out?
It becomes instantly an Andre Drummond lock button night for me because, and this might sound ridiculous, but I think Andre Drummond right now with 36 minutes might have more upside than Joel Embiid does, because Embiid is clearly hobbled, right?
Yeah,
He's not playing the way that we know Joel Embiid can when he's fully healthy. So Drummond dropped 60 in his first start. I don't think he's necessarily going to get to 60 again, but can he put up 50? Absolutely, he can do that. He's averaging 1.5 DraftKings points per minute on the year. Embiid, for what it's worth, is 1.39. So Drummond, like, you might say $24. Like, yeah, he's a buck less than Clint Capella. He's $1 more than Al Horford, who's been really good in his own right this year. But to me, Drummond, if we know he's going to play 35 plus minutes, 33 plus minutes, something like that, he's a $50 player right now.
All right, what happens? Let me follow up on that because I'm interested to see how you approach Drummond first and foremost, and then we'll look at a couple of other guys from Bam at the top to maybe somebody else that's more in that mid-range there from a price standpoint. But what happens with Drummond? Because, again, Embiid playing doesn't lock in. And I know you mentioned that you want to get to him early on, and I'll remind people who are just piling in. We did talk about Embiid to start the show, and you were definitely mentioning, Matt, how you are getting to him still, even if he's playing. It's not like, oh, he's out there for two or 10 minutes. But if you were looking at a pivot for somebody at the top and Embiid is playing, does Andre Drummond move away from that, or has he now become a legit pivot from ownership at these guys at the top, specifically Embiid?
I mean, they really haven't shown any interest in playing Drummond and Embiid together, which makes sense to me, right? And I don't want to bank on the narrative that, okay, Embiid's going to play, but he's going to get hurt during the game. Like, if Embiid is in, I scratch Drummond out. But if Embiid is out, I lock Drummond in. It's pretty much that simple for me.
Yep.
If Embiid is playing and you want some pivots, I think Rudy Gobert is still underpriced at $36. Absolute rebound monster to start the year, over 17 boards per game. You can look at Al Horford at 23. And then if you want to go down and get some value, JaVale McGee could be interesting. He's priced at the minimum, and DeAndre Ayton, another questionable player to consider on this slate. So McGee, we know he's great on a per minute basis. If he gets a little bit more playing time, he could be a nice value.
At Matt LaMarca on Twitter, at Shander Show. For me, we appreciate you all hanging with us. Thanks to Jordan producing. Thanks to Yahoo. Take advantage. We have these links below. Click, and you're going to get $10 free to mess around, to play with, and also 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. If you're a new Yahoo user, then take full advantage of that. When you click on that link, you're going to get the 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum and put that to use immediately. I do see this as far as all the news that the chat is coming with. Don't worry, the deeper dive hitting you right now, live before lock, before this whole thing locks tonight. You don't have to move. You can just stay right here. We'll do it again next week. For Matt, for Jordan, for Yahoo, have a great night.
drove back to my bed. Bad. And we are live just as the moment that the news comes out that Joel Embiid intends to play on Thursday, which is the exact opposite of the way that I started this. But luckily, we have an hour to deal with it, and I'm not on Live Before Lock, so I've got another hour after that. This is the NBA Deeper Dive. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We're here to break down all 5 games, and luckily for us, we're going to kick it off with Philly, but let's start here. Adam, how are you?
I'm better now that I know I was right earlier when I told you that A, we would have the news in plenty of time, and B, I thought he was going to play. So it makes me feel good that we can start the show off on that note.
Yeah, makes me feel great about starting off the show on that note. Nothing better than letting you be right for once. I don't really enjoy the intends to play line. I'm waiting for you to ultimately be wrong.
Yeah,
an hour and 45 minutes from now, but I'm going to go ahead and make that switch as we move forward. You and I did not do the strategy show this morning for the first time, maybe all season, on a Monday through Friday. Oh, no, never mind. You skipped one just because I forgot about that day. Never mind there. Luckily, I wasn't even trying to get a dig back there. That just worked out perfectly for me. I didn't even see it coming. I'm ready to just dive in because I think we do have a lot to talk about. There's quite a few games with Q tags on guys where we're going to have some value opening up. So let's start here on the Philly side. Sixers were -3.5 last I looked. It was 6 before the Joel Embiid news. We'll call it somewhere in that neighborhood. 208 total on this one. And apparently we're moving forward with Joel Embiid, who looks like a fantastic play on FanDuel for sure. A decent play on DraftKings. What do you want to do with Embiid? And then what do you want to do with the rest of Philadelphia?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Embiid became relatively less interesting now that we know LeBron James isn't going to play. I thought earlier in the day that he was a little bit more interesting just because none of the pieces on the Lakers were going to look that good. There's not a lot of pay-up options. He had another relatively disappointing game yesterday. He shot 6 of 18 from the field. He played 34 minutes. He flirted with a triple-double, ended up not even getting a double-double. So it was a pretty disappointing game. The ceiling is still there. He's not producing at the same level this year that he has in the past, but he's still at 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. With Harris out, there's still usage, rebounds, and assist opportunities for him. So even if you are of the mindset that he's not at 100% and that it's not just, a small sample issue why he's not producing quite as well, we can still expect on average his per minute production to go up without Harris, and his baseline this year has been 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. So that's still really, really good production. The playing time, I think, is my thoughts this morning were that if he played, I expected him to get at least close to normal minutes, maybe not the 34 minutes he played yesterday, but like 30 to 32. I guess it wouldn't be shocking if they ran a shorter rotation and, just did like 13 minutes a half. That's possible, I guess. I still don't think it's the most likely outcome, but overall, I think it's just, he's a pretty good tournament play, especially if he's not going to be all that popular. I'm pulling our ownership projections back up now, but assuming
6% on DraftKings last I saw, 15 on FanDuel, but that could go up a little bit based on the news.
Right. So like at 6%, he makes sense in tournaments. I don't think there's any need to get to him in cash games. I think that the floor is pretty low here with it being the second half of back-to-back.
Okay. I think it's truly ridiculous that he was added to the injury report relatively late with a Q tag, and immediately it's just like, hey, by the way, Joel Embiid's probable and he's going to play.
Well, I was confused by the whole thing anyway, because he was added with, it was just like injury management. And it was just like, okay, you've known you had this game today. Like, this is just going to come down to you deciding if you want to rest him or not, right? Like,
right.
What's questionable about this? He's either going to play or he's not.
This has been a weird one. I'm happy that at least it seems we have our answer. So what do you do with the rest of Philly?
So this is still a team that's pretty shorthanded on the wings. Isaiah Joe is in health and safety protocols. He only played like 5 minutes last game, but that is another body that isn't going to be available. Furkan Korkmaz is questionable. Haven't seen any update on that. If he's out, then it's really a problem because you're taking 26 to 28 minutes out, and you already had Thibault play 38 minutes yesterday. You had Niang play about 32. So I think that you can get to these guys. It's still difficult to say exactly which one you feel the best about, because I think a lot of it's going to come down to how the game is going and how these guys are playing. But pretty favorable pricing here. You have Matisse Thybulle on DraftKings at 3,600. He's 4,400 on FanDuel, which isn't as good of a price, but their scoring system is basically built for Matisse Thybulle, averaging 5 steals per 100 possessions this year, 3 blocks per 100 possessions. Since last year, it's like 3.9 and 2.6. So just, absurd defensive numbers that make up for the fact that he has a sub 10% usage rate. If he's going to play 37 or 38 minutes, he's going to look like a good value. You have Korkmaz potentially. You have Niang, who closed again, playing 32 minutes. They're both reasonably priced. They're, solid value options. And then you still have $3,900 Shake Milton, who once again only played 20 minutes yesterday. They said he's not on a minutes restriction. 20 minutes is probably 20 minutes is where you should project him. But what happens if he's playing really, really well and Niang's playing poorly, or Korkmaz is playing poorly, or Korkmaz is out? I think that at least knowing he's not on a minutes restriction means the ceiling is a little bit higher. So assuming he's not going to be very popular, I don't mind getting some of him either. So all of those, cheap wing pieces, I think, are just kind of forced into a lot of minutes here for the most part.
Yeah, I'm very, I don't want to say excited to play some of Philly, because obviously Tyrese Maxey has been the bane of my existence over the beginning of this season, and I assume he will continue to be in this spot as well. But I mean, there's 8 legitimate guys you could roster on Philadelphia today?
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's, we didn't even talk about the starting backcourt with Maxey and Curry. Harris being out opens up more opportunities. Maxey played 37 or 38 minutes yesterday. He's only 5,500. Even if you get 0.75 DraftKings points per minute from him, that's still reasonable at his salary. And obviously he has the upside for more. But Seth Curry, I think it's worth noting as well. He's only played about 80 minutes without Harris on the floor this year, but he's got a 25% usage rate. And that's really noteworthy when you're talking about someone who shoots as well as Seth Curry does. He's an extremely efficient shooter. Typically, he's just not someone that's going to get up that many shots because he's playing with Ben Simmons and Harris and Embiid. Now he's just playing with Embiid. So since last year, it's about a 20.5% usage rate without Harris on the floor and with Embiid on. But you're seeing increased opportunities so far. He's likely to play another 34 to 36 minutes. So I think he's 5,900. There's some sticker shock, but I think it's a different role for him.
Yeah, at 5,100 on FanDuel, point guard, shooting guard eligibility too. I think he looks even better there. If that 9% ownership number on FanDuel holds, I'm going to have more than that of Seth Curry, just sort of by default. Do you have any qualms with the ownership on Matisse Thybulle? 36% on FanDuel right now, 34% on DraftKings. A little bit more reasonable on DK, where he's 3,600.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think it's one of those where it makes a ton of sense because he is a very good point per dollar option. I have him at 21 DraftKings points. So you're talking, 6 to 7x his salary. Yeah. Where I have the concern is he's just not the type of player that I'm really worried is going to get 36 or 40 DraftKings points and do something that I can't replicate with someone else. So I think he's the most likely out of the people in his price range to, get 20 to 25 points. But I think it's pretty unlikely he does anything that I absolutely have to have. So it kind of will end up coming down to, am I able to get to other players that are low owned that I like, or does it end up being okay, well, everybody's playing Westbrook. I don't want to give up Westbrook. Everybody's playing Davis. I don't want to give up Davis. So I'll give up Matisse Thybulle and hope that he doesn't burn me.
Yeah, on FanDuel, we've got Thybulle at 4,400. We've got Niang at 3,700. Thybulle is 36% owned. Niang is 20. I just want Niang there. I don't think that these guys are all that different from a per minute perspective. I think Thybulle has the chance to really break something on FanDuel if he goes for 4 steals, 4 blocks, and all of a sudden he's getting value without even factoring in other stats. But other than that, I think Niang is the better option there, just relative to ownership in GPPs. Clearly, I'm going to have both guys because I can't get away from them. Yeah,
and the conversation's already come up in chat, but $3,600 Thybulle, 4K Cunningham, I am much, much, much more scared to not have Cade Cunningham in a lineup than to not have Matisse Thybulle.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Do we have anything else that we need to touch on for Philly?
I think I said every rotation player is viable, so no, I think that's it.
Yeah, that'll work. On to the Pistons now.
Hang on. I guess just keep an eye out on the news because they did have Isaiah Joe go into health and safety protocols. They then said that everyone on the team is being tested. I don't know what the timeline is for that. I haven't seen anything everyone is clear. So just keep an eye out. We could get, weird guys ruled out.
Yeah. Assuming my assumption right now is that it's much ado about nothing. Don't know if that's going to work out, but if Chris Haynes is going to tweet about Joel Embiid intending to play today, I don't get the sense that there's also a giant cloud COVID hanging over them either. So for the Pistons, you mentioned Cade Cunningham. He is leading the charge in ownership on DraftKings for the Pistons and basically for everybody. 46% owned at 4K. I think that is high, but it's a 5-game slate and super reasonable. And he was the number 1 pick in the draft and likely playing 30 minutes or more. The other play that's pulling some ownership, and I was kind of hoping that it wasn't going to happen, but it is. He's really the only guy pulling any significant ownership. That would be Sadiq Bey, 5,600 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings, somewhere in the 20 to 25% range. And I think that is appropriate for him. After that, fingers crossed on the Pistons, man. This team is bleak.
Yeah, the rotations suck for DFS too. Most of the players do as well, but it's for the most part, there's not a whole lot to see here. Cade Cunningham, I think, is a fantastic play. I don't really see a way around it. Yes, he is 0 for 14 from 3 in his first 2 NBA games. He's shooting a combined 3 for 22. That's obviously really, really bad, but it's not like this. He's not expected to be a good shooter. He shot well in college. I think Greg said he shot like 86% from the line, which is typically indicative of guys that can shoot a basketball. And the biggest thing for me is just he's getting the opportunities. He has a 23.5% usage rate so far this year. His assist percentage is up around 18% through his first 2 games. Rebounding percentage between 9 and 10%. So it's not like it's a situation where he's out there and like Josh Jackson and Sadiq Bey and Jeremy Grant are just like, oh yeah, rookie, you're not getting the ball. He's getting the ball. He's getting opportunities. I'm really encouraged by the fact that, not only did they say that he wasn't on a minutes restriction last game, they brought him back in garbage time to get him up to about 30 minutes. I always love to see that because it just reinforces that this is someone they, regardless of score or anything, they want to get him out there playing. They're not concerned about his health if they're, running him out there. Like they could have said, oh, this is a perfect excuse to limit him to 24 minutes because, we're getting our asses kicked and don't have to bring him in. The fact that he got that last stint just helps to solidify his minutes. I just think, whereas Thibault, you're just kind of thinking, you think about it in terms of like what you're going to feel when you're watching the game, like watching your team. When you have Thibault, it's just like you're going to be sweating it. Like, okay, like I hope this guy gets me to 23, DraftKings points or whatever. Cunningham, it's just, you assume he's going to get there. Like the offensive game is the offensive ceiling is so much higher than Thibault's. So while I think Thibault's a good play, if I could only play one of the two, I'd be going to Cunningham first.
Okay. I'm not reading into this. It's not changing anything that I'm doing with Cade Cunningham, but listening to the Dunked On podcast with Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue, Nate thought that he saw a change in Cade Cunningham's shooting motion since he's been back now, different from Summer League or different from the preseason, whichever one that he was available for. Summer League, I guess, different from when he was in college. Don't know if that's good or bad, but it was something that he caught and is going to pay attention to moving forward. So could be part of the reason why he's having bad shooting, but I'm not going to treat him like anything other than what he is, which was the number 1 pick in the draft.
Also, this was coming up this morning and it's coming up again. Fade Cade. There's no reason to play him until he proves himself. Why? Like, what are you gaining by waiting for him to have a good game? Like, unless you have a reason to think that Cade Cunningham, the first overall pick in the draft, is like incapable of scoring a basketball, you didn't take it. You shouldn't be taking anything away from those first 2 games. He shot poorly. Who cares? Damian Lillard shooting like 20% from 3 this year. All you're doing by waiting is you're just passing up on a very clear top value, just waiting for something to happen that is going to happen.
And I mean, 2 other points to that. One, you have to assume that his price is not going to be 4K for the rest of time. The reason that it isn't 4K is because he plays well and raises his price. 2, should we treat every rookie like this, where it's just like, we can't roster those guys? We don't know what they do in the NBA. You are just going to be left behind, not holding the bag a lot.
Right. It's not like we're talking about, like a $6,500 Cunningham or a $7K Cunningham, where you kind of need some idea to know what he can do in the NBA, because that's a difficult price tag to pay off. If he just plays if you give 30 minutes to like any 4K player and you tell me that they're going to have a 23% usage rate, I really do not care who they are. I assume that they're paying off 4K.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I don't get the sense that Cade Cunningham is going to be a 0.7 something fantasy point per minute guy moving forward. The Pistons would be better off bringing Darko back. What do we do with the rest of the Pistons here? Is Jeremy Grant in play for you? 6,800 on DraftKings. How are you feeling about this Kelly Olynyk, Isaiah Stewart split, which is flipping itself on its head as of late? Pistons are weird, man.
Yeah, I mean, Grant and Bay are the other two guys that I think I can reasonably get to here. Not super excited about either one, but Bay is doing a good job in terms of rebounding and getting some assists. 20+% usage rate as well. If this game's competitive, you assume he's playing 33 or 34 minutes. Same can be said for Grant. He's a bit more one-dimensional, but also has the higher usage rate at almost 26% this year. So I think they're both fine, but I do think they both relatively lost some value when we got the Lakers news and we got the news that Daniel Tice is out, because it just kind of turned it into a more like stars and scrubby slate with two really, really good options at the top in Westbrook and Davis, with potential value like Şengün and Kenyon Martin. So I think it made them a little bit less valuable, but still playable. Olynyk is for sure tournaments only. The only like case I can make for him is he's such a good per minute guy. He's about 1.17 DraftKings points per minute this year. The floor is essentially non-existent because we've seen in his last couple of games, like 16 and 22 minutes basically is just the backup to Stewart. But both of those games were also blowouts. We've also seen 3 games ago in a competitive game where he played, the final 14 or 15 minutes, whatever it was, got up to like 27 minutes. At 5,100, if you find some way to get 26 or 27 minutes of Olynyk, you're probably getting a really, really good play at low ownership. So I think that's a reasonable case for Olynyk, but I think you still have to acknowledge that the floor basically does not exist.
Do you have anything else here? I don't have a ton from this Pistons side. I got the 15% Sadiq Bey on my last FanDuel crunch, and that's the most I'm getting of anybody. I don't really love the $4,600 tag on Cade for today, given the 28% ownership on FanDuel. I think that's a little aggressive. Still want to have some, but I think that he's a much easier guy to get to on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel for today.
I agree with that. I still think he's fine on FanDuel, but I don't think he's as good a play.
Agreed. Anything else here?
No, just I guess to reiterate, you can name literally any player that's been drafted in the first round ever. Tell me they have a 23% usage rate. They're $4,000 and they're playing 30 minutes, and I would play them.
Absolutely. What do you have him at on DraftKings, by the way?
28.
Okay. That was a weird burp. Anyway. Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this show, 6 p.m. Eastern time. So you've got us for another 42 minutes, but we've got another hour of content going all the way up until lock. Then we've got NFL Live Before Lock tonight at 7:15. So brief break allows Jordan to go hit the head or something, get a drink, and then come back and produce more shows. I don't even know if Jordan's producing NFL Live Before Lock, but no, he's not based on that shake. So he's done when we're done. Congratulations on that one, Jordan. Plus free content today, NBA projections, NFL Showdown rankings, and NHL top stacks. We'll move it on to game numero 2 on this one. The Utah Jazz and the Atlanta Hawks. This one is also not easy to talk about right out of the gate. We have Rudy Gay. I repeat, Rudy Gay is out. Different Rudy than what everybody thought this morning. Questionable tags on Donovan Mitchell, Royce O'Neal, and late add to the injury report today, John Collins. We will start on the Utah side. For right now, I have it as business as usual. I've got everybody in. We know how to project these guys from a rotational perspective. I like Donovan Mitchell for $8K on FanDuel, quite a bit, a little bit less so for $9,400 on DraftKings. Probably going to get to some Mike Conley as well. $5,200 on FanDuel, $6,300 on DraftKings, just slightly different prices. I assume you're on the same page as me for Mitchell and Conley on FanDuel.
Yes, just really, really good pricing on those two over there.
Yeah, I don't know how to add anything else there. So the floor is yours then. What do you see for the Jazz here on the DK side?
Rudy Gobert is the piece that really stands out. He's 8,600. There's not as much opportunity cost at center tonight as there normally is. There's still some solid options, but just with it being a 5-game slate, you have Gobert, you have Bam, you have, Capella and Embiid, but they, sort of have their own issues. Maybe you have Eytan, but you have Wood. It's still a good position, but it's not what it normally is. And so it makes it even easier to get to Gobert. And he's been one of the best centers this year anyway. He's averaging about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute, leads the NBA in rebound chances by about 3. And he's playing almost 3 minutes less per game than Valanciunas, who's in second, just getting an insane amount of opportunities. He has a 29% rebounding percentage so far this year. I assume that comes down, but still, probably into the mid-20s. And his usage rate's up a couple of points this year as well, which for Gobert is a really big deal because he's so efficient. So I think he still looks great here. I assume he's going to play 32 or 33 minutes if this game's competitive, and he just stands out as a really good option. After that, Mitchell at 9,400, another guy that earlier in the day, I never loved him, but I thought he looked better than he does now, because now there's just guys that are clearly better than him to pay up for. But in tournaments, he does still have a really high ceiling, as we saw last time out, but not as appealing a matchup as he had against the Kings. Mike Conley's price came up a little bit on DraftKings to 6,300. He's still okay, but not a priority. Jordan Clarkson is kind of interesting to me in tournaments. I'm not going to get nearly as much as I did last time out, but he's shooting insanely bad this year. But it makes it so people don't really roster him. He's only 5,300. He has a 29% usage rate. Those shots are going to fall at some point. He took 13 of them last time out. He shot 1 for 13. It's just, if he were really popular, I wouldn't go there because I would just say, okay, hopefully Clarkson just keeps doing what he's doing. He plays 22 minutes. He misses every shot he takes. If Clarkson goes out there and is actually making shots, it's easy for him to pick up 3 or 4 more minutes, get to 25, 26 minutes. The opportunities are there. I love going to guys like this when they're low owned, even though the risk is pretty high.
Yeah, I have a little bit of him on FanDuel right now. I'm more than okay with it. It's mostly Mitchell and Conley season for me because the prices are just so dramatically different. Do we want to hash out what we think happens if Donovan Mitchell or Mike Conley happen to not play? Like if Mike Conley doesn't play, fire up your Jordan Clarksons. You're probably going to be able to fire up a bit of Joe Ingles as well.
It's kind of annoying because Clarkson would become popular.
Yes. If Donovan Mitchell is out, that really changes the scope of Utah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Mitchell's out and Conley's in, play Conley, play Clarkson, play Ingles, play Bogdanovich, play anybody that shoots. That's basically those guys. If Conley is out, same thing, but muted a bit because you're still, having these guys compete with Donovan Mitchell. It also would make Mitchell look a little bit better because you would get more assist opportunities and possibly a little bit more usage.
Anything else for Utah?
Just as far as Clarkson goes, 43.2% true shooting percentage so far this season. It can't really get worse. And, it never feels good to play these guys. And I'm not saying it with a lot of confidence, but it's just like the mindset when you're talking, especially in tournaments, the mindset in chat of like, he's shooting really poorly this year. He's played like 6-7 games, whatever. There's no reason you should be taking that over what he has done for his entire career. Since the start of last year, 53.9% true shooting percentage. He is just the chances that he finishes this year around that number are much, much, much higher than the fact that he is cut a month from now, because that's what would happen if he keeps doing what he's doing.
No, don't you understand? Cade Cunningham never made a 3 and will never make a 3.
Right.
There's no such thing as regression. Whatever you're doing in this particular moment is the only way that we can move forward with this. Also, that's a perfect exercise for everybody. If you think that Cade is like a weird play, you're implying in that argument that you think that he is going to continue to shoot for the century mark at 3 instead of regressing that to a mean. And for him, that mean is like 38%. So, try dealing with that. Atlanta, a lot of trickle down effects with John Collins. So I think we should probably just start there. If Collins is in, we kind of know what we need to do with Atlanta. We know what we're going to get out of Trae Young. We sort of know what we're going to get out of John Collins. And then we kind of just have to shrug our shoulders to try to figure out who the other guys that are going to finish this game are going to be, because there are plenty of options. If Collins ends up out, we just get to give all of this wealth of wings that the Hawks have more minutes and make things look a little bit better. What do you do with Atlanta in this scenario?
So assuming Collins is in, there's not a whole lot that looks good. Like Collins at 7,100 is fine. He's been playing more minutes lately. He's been able to stay out of foul trouble, which has been good. I assume he plays around 32 minutes. The matchup sucks. Utah, one of the best defensive teams in the league, just a really, really difficult matchup. But the pricing on Atlanta is also not that great. Capella at 7,200. I am encouraged by the minutes he's been playing recently. You've seen him getting, 32, 33 minutes, or at least on pace to get that if the game is close. This is a spot where I would expect him to try and be on the floor for every minute that Gobert is on the floor. So you're probably looking at 32 to 33 minutes again, barring foul trouble or blowout. The issue is that for one, the matchup sucks, but also Capella's usage is down this year. Collins, is getting usage. Trae Young obviously is getting his, but you also have like whatever minutes Cam Reddish is on the floor, his usage rate has gone up. DeAndre Hunter's at 20% so far. So you've seen Capella come down a little bit. That it doesn't mean that's going to happen. That's going to be the case forever, but it has happened so far this year, and it's made him a little bit less productive. So not anybody I'm really confident in. I have a hard time paying 9,900 for Trae Young. There's not a whole lot here. Like John Collins is who I would get to first, and then the rest is pretty ugly. DeAndre Hunter at 4K, I guess is fine, but nothing that really stands out from the Hawks.
God, I can't remember his name. Oh my God. Well, Pistons coach Dwayne Casey, God, couldn't figure it out. Dwayne Casey just said all the restrictions are off of Cade Cunningham. So just putting that out there.
He said, how did he word it?
All the restrictions are off or gone for Cade Cunningham.
Right. Well, that sounds more confident than last game where he said, I don't think he's on a restriction. Like he wasn't the one making that decision.
Rod Beard also has the word thinks in here. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think we're fine there. Anyway, you mentioned the Trae Young price for 9,900 on DraftKings. Slightly different on FanDuel. I love Trae Young at 8,600 on FanDuel. I think that price is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with that. Someone in chat said they'd rather play the best play, not what if this guy's going to find his shot tonight. I would love to know which guys are going to make their shots tonight. That would make this a lot easier.
Yeah. Hawks are saying that Bogdan Bogdanović is questionable for tonight.
Fire up Cam Reddish, I guess.
Fire up Kevin Huerter?
Fire up Cam Reddish.
Okay.
I just think I think Reddish is ahead of Huerter at this point. And he's playing a lot better. He has a 25% usage rate this year. Obviously, that would come down the more minutes he's playing alongside Trae Young. But I mean, yeah, like if Huerter starts, then I guess you give him a minutes bump. I'm assuming Reddish would start.
Do you have any thoughts as to the current situation on Gorgeous Dong? Played 3.5 minutes this last time out. Rotations are starting to shrink. Is he going to be out of this rotation? Are they going to just go to Capella and Collins and nothing else?
That's the way it seems like it's going. Like you've had Lou Williams in there, I guess replacing DeLon Wright basically. But basically since Gallo came back, you've been getting less Gorgie Jang minutes and more of Collins at the 5, so Gallo can get his.
Are you going to take Bogdanović out now?
No.
Okay. Reddish 5,300 on FanDuel is fine. I don't think that he'll look like some sort of crazy play by the time this is over. 4,600 shooting guard small forward on DraftKings is going to look quite a bit different if Bogdanović is out.
Yeah, I'm pulling up now to see. So Reddish has played 96 minutes alongside Young this season, 20.9% usage rate, 0.78 DraftKings points per minute. Not surprising that the production's gone down. So I guess even if Huerter were to start for Bogdanović, I think that makes Huerter look better than if Huerter's coming off the bench. But I still wouldn't hate Reddish because I think that there's still minutes available for Reddish to play like close to 30 off the bench. And he's going to get more usage the more he's not out there with Young.
Dwayne Casey says all restrictions on Cade Cunningham minutes back-to-backs have been lifted. There we go. Done.
Does he play like 36 minutes tonight?
I'm going to ump his minutes to 32.
I mean, I'm assuming at 30, I'm getting him in every lineup anyway. But
yeah, well, yeah, DraftKings very different discussion than FanDuel.
Oh, right, yeah.
I would have already had him on DK.
Yeah.
So, anything else in here for Utah or Atlanta?
No.
All righty, on to Boston and Miami. This one surprised me today. So out for Boston, nobody. We have questionable tags on Josh Richardson. Max Strus is out for the Heat. I had Horford out most of the day. By all accounts, he's going to play today on this back-to-back. I didn't see that one coming. So it's Boston, right? Like this is a team that has the highest owned guy on DraftKings is 9% at Horford, where he's 7,400. Tatum's pulling a little bit of ownership on FanDuel. Robert Williams is pulling a little bit of ownership on FanDuel at 6,100. I don't find Boston to be all that appealing. Very difficult matchup against Miami from a defensive standpoint, and Boston hasn't been great. So what do you want to do with the Celtics?
Not much of anything. I don't really like the pricing here, assuming we don't get somebody, ruled out late. We do have Josh Richardson questionable, but that doesn't matter too much. It should just mean more minutes for Grant Williams / Peyton Pritchard / Romeo Langford. But I don't see a whole lot. I mean, Horford's played incredibly well this year. If he plays 30 to 32 minutes, he has a ceiling, but it's still 7,400 against Miami, who has the second best defensive rating behind Golden State this year. They play at a slow pace. They are 20th in pace this season. It's just not a very appealing spot. It's the way I see it is, Horford's playing really, really well. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are insanely talented. They can go out there against anybody and just throw up 50, 55 fantasy points. It's really, really unlikely. You're paying for it. It's not like they're discounted for this matchup. So that makes it tough. 5,600 for Schroeder, especially if Richardson were to sit. I think that solidifies his minutes a little bit. I could see getting there, but I think Boston's arguably the least appealing team to me tonight.
Yeah, I have no problem with that take. It seems
And actually, I
spot
don't
on
think
to me.
arguably needed to be in that sentence.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have much, and I'm totally cool with that, which means Boston, Miami's probably going to double OT, and
Right.
they're going to score 130 apiece. On the Miami side, though, I think things are a little bit different. I have a ton of interest here, particularly on some of these guys like Kyle Lowry on FanDuel, who's still just $5,900, $1,800 cheaper than he is on DraftKings. I'm going to have quite a bit. Tyler Hero, I think, looks fine, pulling some ownership. Bam looks fine, 8,800 on FanDuel, 8,100 on DK. He's pulling a lot of ownership, a little bit more than I was expecting, but it's a great spot, and he's been fantastic this year. Jimmy Butler is a guy I basically never get to. It hasn't been fun so far. 1.44 fantasy points per minute. Hasn't been great for me. I don't have him again today because he's 10,300 on FanDuel, and that's a monstrous price tag for him. What do you do with the Heat?
Yeah, he's 9,600 on DraftKings as well. And it's the situation you just described. I think he's a good, like he's got a really, really high ceiling. Obviously, he's having a great year at 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. He just projects as really, really difficult for me to get to here, even, at his rates this season. It's just, I have him at like 43 DraftKings points in 36 minutes.
I have him at 45 and I still don't get to him.
Yeah, I just don't totally buy into him maintaining 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. So, and then also, at least earlier, he was getting some ownership. So that makes it tough as well. Right now it's 17%. It's just, I don't know. It's tough for me to be getting him in lineups at 17% as opposed to just like going to the Lakers guys when I pay up. I do really like Bam, 8,100. He's been fantastic this year. Usage rate is up to 28.5%. Rebounding percentage at 21.7%. The only negative for him is that his assists have really taken a hit, down from about 25% last year to 8% this year. I think that can be explained in part by the addition of Kyle Lowry. It can be explained by Tyler Hero playing more minutes and also taking on a bigger role as a playmaker. But he's making up for it with usage. He's making up for it with rebounding. So I'm not really concerned about it. Still 1.32 DraftKings points per minute. A much more reasonable price tag for him than for Butler. Tyler Hero at 6,700. Not something I thought I would be saying this early into the season, but he has been playing much, much better. Not only does he have I think the highest usage rate on the team. Highest usage rate on the team at 29.8%. But he has a 22.5% assist percentage, 10% rebounding percentage, and he's averaging 31.5 minutes per game at 1.18 DraftKings points per minute. He's typically closing games. He's just doing everything when he's out there. He's pretty quickly gone from, basically a volume scorer that was like a net negative offensively most nights to someone that's contributing in every category when he's on the floor and playing 32 minutes a night. So 6,700 for him. There's some sticker shock there, but he actually looks to me like one of the better mid-range guard options.
Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't expect that coming into it, but yeah, here we are.
Kyle Lowry on FanDuel.
Go ahead.
Is pretty cheap.
Yeah, I mean, 5,900. Like, let's just at 5,900 to hit his boom score, 5x plus 10. It's 39.5. I don't think that it's outside the realm of possibility for Kyle Lowry to have 40 fantasy points in this spot. So I will happily have quite a bit of Kyle Lowry. 2,100 people in here right now, only 230 likes. That's just not going to get it done, guys. We need to hit that thumbs up. It helps us out tremendously. And I just love seeing that number climb. So let's run that one up there. I mean, 400 should be in our sights immediately. So don't be afraid to hit it. Subscribe to the channel, notification bell, all that stuff. Anything else for Miami?
No, I think that's it.
All righty. We got to talk a little bit about our sponsor here. That is Yahoo Fantasy. We partnered with them and we have a pretty solid offer as far as I'm concerned. Check out this one. You get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And basically all you have to do is sign up at Yahoo. Sign up, make a deposit, and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you do those things and you've played your first paid contest. We will then reach out to you with a coupon code. If you need immediate access, please email support@awesemo.com. There's also a free $10, which can be used to enter any Yahoo contest. We've got Yahoo tools and projections designed specifically for them on our website. Gives you the best chances to win. I think it's a great deal. Free month plus some free money. You cannot beat it. So go sign up at Yahoo, everybody. And for Hank the Tank, there are certainly still a bunch of teams where I would rather have Chris Middleton than Jimmy Butler. I have no problem saying that. Depends on the team. Depends on if the Lakers could have one of the two, unquestionably to me, it's Chris Middleton. Yeah. Like if you want to build an offense around someone like Butler, pop some shooting around him, that's going to be great. But Middleton is easier to fit with other teams. That's important to me. Let's keep going. 2 games to go. I'm excited for this one. Houston Rockets at the Phoenix Suns. Rockets are 10-point dogs, 217 total. And the big news here, no Daniel Tice, which leads me to this. 5,100 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. What would you like to do with Şengün? He's 19% owned on DK. I'm getting a ton where he's 8% on FanDuel.
I'm interested to see what the starting lineup is here. I wouldn't be surprised if it depends on DeAndre Ayton news. Şengün started last game against the Lakers. He played about 25 to 26 minutes. Didn't have a really good game, but he's been productive overall this season. At only 4,100, he looks like a good value. Even if he's coming off the bench, I assume he plays a couple more minutes at least with Tice out. But if he starts, it would help to solidify those minutes. I'm just a little concerned, like if you get a front court of Jay Crowder and Frank Kaminsky, do they still start Şengün and Wood, or do they start KJ Martin alongside Wood? I wouldn't be surprised at all if it ends up being Martin, if Ayton doesn't start, particularly if Kaminsky does start.
I think it's Şengün either way.
Do you?
Yeah, just because it's the Rockets. I don't think they care as much about KJ Martin as they do about Şengün. I think they want to give him that start.
Yeah, that's fair.
Obviously, I'm not backing that up with like anything real, but
no, I mean,
I would be very surprised if they didn't start Şengün.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable take. I mean, at the same time, though, Martin did play more minutes than him last game.
Yeah, that was weird. Did you see that? So Şengün played your like normal rotations and then took one at the beginning of the fourth, didn't close. I'm just really curious if they have interest in closing him in that spot or not.
I mean, he didn't close the first half either. He opened the second quarter. KJ Martin closed the half. Yeah, closed the half, and then similar rotation in the second half with KJ Martin closing.
I gave Şengün 26 minutes. I think that's
right now. I have it at 24 and 24 between him and Martin.
Okay. I have Martin at 24 as well.
Yeah, I think, it could go like you could go, I think, higher on one or both of those guys. Eric Gordon being back today is why I took a couple of minutes off. But
yeah. The good for Şengün, like obviously if he's starting, his range of minutes is like 22 to 32, probably.
Yep.
And I'm cool with that at that point in time, especially for 8K on FanDuel. I mean, the things that he's good at, he is ultra talented offensively. He is tailor-made for DFS in this particular spot. So even at a $5,100 price tag where people might not look at that and love it, I don't really mind it because if the minutes are there, I expect him to be productive. And if there's no DeAndre Ayton there, I'm certainly just not all that worried about it.
Yeah. And also like on DraftKings at 4,100, even in 24 minutes, he's showing up in a very high percentage of like my just my non-randomized just crunches just to see what my optimal lineups look like. He's still showing up in a lot of them. So kind of just nothing but upside for him.
What else do we do with Houston? I'm getting a ton of this team again. Kevin Porter Jr. is 5,900 on FanDuel, only 20% owned. I'm well over the field. Christian Wood is 7,900 on FanDuel, 8,800 on DraftKings. We have him at 27% ownership on FanDuel. I'm over the field. I'm over on Jae'Sean Tate. I've got some Kenyon Martin at 3,700. I like a lot of this Houston team, and I don't really enjoy liking a lot of this Houston team because they don't care about winning.
Yeah, but they do care about playing their guys a ton of minutes, which is really nice.
Do.
Yeah, there's really 6 guys that I'm interested in here. Şengün, Porter, Martin, Wood, Green, Tate. It wouldn't be the craziest thing if Eric Gordon had a good game, I guess, but he's behind those other guys for me. Just based on the amount of playing time and production we've seen this year. Jae'Sean Tate is one. He's only projected for 6% ownership. He looks pretty good to me to the point where it's scaring me, and I can't find a way to like make it lower.
I got a lot of Tate, and I think I'm pessimistic with his minutes too.
Yeah, so am I. I knocked him down to I have him at 32 minutes.
I have him at 28, and I'm 2.5 times the field on FanDuel.
I had 29 before Tice was ruled out. Then I went back to 32, but like he's producing 0.9 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's doing everything. He has a 12.8% rebounding percentage, 14.7% assist percentage, 19.5% usage rate. Since last year, he's 0.86 DraftKings points per minute. So I think this is just a spot where I'm biased against him, but there's no real reason to be. The numbers back up that he's a pretty productive guy, and he's likely to get a good amount of minutes here. Played 35 last game. Again, I took a few off because you have Eric Gordon back, but I think he's a good option at low ownership. I think that Jalen Green at 5,700, another one of these rookies that hasn't been very good from a fantasy standpoint, but he's playing a ton of minutes in competitive games. He has a 22% usage rate, 16.5% assist percentage, has a 48.6% true shooting percentage. Yeah, he probably doesn't turn it around tonight, but the opportunities are there for him, and he's talented. That's kind of, in tournaments, that's really what I'm looking for. It's just talented guys that are getting opportunities. I don't care about when they do poorly because I'm going to lose tournaments, most of the time anyway. It's more so about like how good are their good games going to be? Is it someone where it's just like there's not that many opportunities in the offense and they're moderately talented, so even when they outperform expectations, they just have like decent games? Or is it someone where it's just like he can do a lot of things on the floor, he's really, really talented, when he plays well, he can just have a game bigger than people realize? And I think that's the case with somebody like Green. So I still like him in tournaments. Christian Wood, Kevin Porter, I think speak for themselves. Porter played 39 minutes last game. Wood was at like 37 and a half. That's the nice thing about Houston too, is like they're kind of scary to get to because they're bad and there's always blowout risk, but they run such tight rotations that even if you get blown out and you lose like half the fourth quarter, it means you played like 33 minutes probably.
And that's sort of how I'm projecting their top guys, and I'm still getting them. Like I got Wood at 34, Porter at 33, Jalen Green at 33. Like I said, Tate at 28, Şengün at 26. I'm getting a ton of Wood and Porter at those numbers, and I think I could very realistically put them in for 35 or 36 minutes. And at that point, it's going to be like a real problem for me. So I'm happy where I'm at right now, getting to a lot of Houston. It's not going to be fun to watch, I'm sure, but I'm going to do it anyway. By the way, Doc Rivers said the rest of the Sixers players tested negative on their COVID test. They have 10 players available if Joel Embiid and Furkan Korkmaz play.
Didn't we think they had 9?
I said they had 9 if Embiid didn't play.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So,
yeah.
yes.
Bassie and Reed are the two that we assume wouldn't play.
Yeah. I mean, Reed might. Bassie won't, is my expectation.
Yeah.
Barring like shit time. Let's switch it over to Phoenix unless you have anything else for Houston.
Nope.
For the Phoenix Suns, as we mentioned before, we do have the wild card out there right now. DeAndre Ayton is questionable. Cam Payne is questionable. Everything that I've read about Cam Payne is that he's not playing today. He looked to be further away. I don't think that he's totally ready. So I'm not even treating Cam Payne like it's anything, but he's not relevant for this particular. Well, on a 5-game slate, if he's playing, he's relevant. But I'm treating him like he's out for right now. To me, I don't want to go back to a guy until he's actually functionally back. Ayton, on the other hand, I'm treating like he's out. I assume you are as well.
I was actually treating them both like they were in, but I did just see the thing from yesterday that DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Payne did some court work, but still easing them back. He said Payne did more than Ayton.
Yeah.
I
don't think either one's playing, but I have them both out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go that route now. I had them both in, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take them out because that doesn't sound particularly encouraging.
So obviously, whoever the starter is in this conversation is going to immediately just look safer, whether that's JaVale McGee at center or if they happen to start Frank Kaminsky. Kaminsky is 4,400 on FanDuel, 3,500 on DraftKings. JaVale is 4,300 and 3,900. I'm going to play a ton of both of them if DeAndre Ayton is not playing. Kaminsky's got the power forward eligibility as well, which helps. I assume you're happy to play both of those guys on DraftKings.
Yeah, 3,900 for McGee, assuming you're going to get around 20 minutes, still looks good. Kaminsky, I think his playing time is more volatile. Like he's at more risk of being really bad and just getting yanked off the floor for like Jalen Smith or something. But we saw him start the second half last game. He ended up playing about 28 minutes at 3,500. That's going to look like a good option. He's not a bad per minute fantasy player. It's more if he's not a good actual NBA player and he gets benched a lot. But since last year for Kaminsky, 820 minutes played, 1.03 DraftKings points per minute at 3,500. That's going to look really good. And then also one reason why I am willing to project Ayton out is that, you know, they're playing Houston where we know there's some value there. Like you have KJ Martin you can use as a swap. You have Şengün, but then also you have cheap guys on OKC. You have some not very good, but cheap guys on the Lakers. So you're not like, if you get news at, 9:00 Eastern that Ayton is in, you're not going to be happy, but you at least aren't stuck with like not being able to swap off of your cheap players.
For sure. What do we do with the rest of this Phoenix team? Because Devin Booker's pulling close to 20% ownership across both sites. Jay Crowder is at 21% on FanDuel. Chris Paul is at 35% ownership on FanDuel. I don't see that right now. I don't understand it totally. Bridges is 5,200 and 5,100 across both sites. He's at 30% ownership. I mean, Philly. Phoenix is pulling a ton of ownership. I like some of it, but at the same time, like, I think it's just kind of easier to be a little lighter here.
Well, I think what you do with Payne, or what ends up happening with Payne, affects Paul, because if Payne were to play, I think he's playing, 15, 16 minutes, and you're getting Paul back to that like 32, 33 minute range that he typically lives in. But with Payne out, we've been seeing more, 36, 37 minute games from Paul, where Elfrid Payton is playing 11, 12, 13 minutes. So I think that Paul looks better if you assume that Payne is out. I think he's playable either way, but I'm more confident in the extra minutes if Payne sits. And Paul has been really good this year. He has a 51+% assist percentage. He's averaging like 1.25 DraftKings points per minute, and Houston's played at the fastest pace in the league this year. So I think Paul looks good. I think Booker looks good. I actually prefer Paul by a little bit. And then the other guys, Bridges, Crowder, they're cheap. They're playing 32, 33 minutes. There could be some extra rebounding opportunities if Eytan sits. So I like Phoenix. I'm with you as far as they're getting, a pretty good amount of ownership, but I also don't like, I think it's deserved.
What do you have Chris Paul's minutes in for today?
Well, I had 33, but if I'm taking Payne out, I'm going to 35.
Wow. Okay. That's the tricky part for me. I don't feel like I can do that.
I mean, maybe I'll do 34. I'm not going lower than 34.
Yeah, I think that I am light, and 34 was where I was looking to land. I was just hoping you didn't say 36, because I was going to make sure that you and I dug into that conversation.
Yeah. No, so I mean, he's played 4 games without Payne. He's averaged 32 minutes per game. I know the last couple have been 36 and 37. He had, I think, 30 right before that. But so he played 30 against Sacramento. He played 26 in a blowout against Portland, 37 against Cleveland, 36 against the Pels. So one of those games was a blowout. The Sacramento game on the 27th seems like the only competitive game where he didn't play a ton of minutes.
Super chat came in from Coach S. Nice to see you for the first time in a while. And that's what you said. Guys, it's been a while. Yes, it has. Hope you guys are well. 2 things. Robert Williams, 5,800, and has had 3 of 7 games north of 35.5. And if optimizing thoughts, do you make a rule at least 1 Westbrook or Davis, or some with 0? Keep up the good work. I mean, I like Robert Williams every night, but that hasn't been great for me either.
Yeah, like Williams to me at this point is just a tournament dart. I think Horford's really cutting into his rebounding. He hasn't been as productive even without Horford on the floor as he was last year. That's not to say that he's not going to have games where he just throws up 5 blocks or stuff like that. But I am pretty down on him just for as long as Horford's playing. The price is reasonable though, so it's fine. As far as the other part, I'm not setting a rule for one of Westbrook and Davis, but I'm just gonna get one of Westbrook and Davis everywhere, so it's not really gonna matter.
Yeah, I don't have to have the rule. They're just gonna show up.
Yeah, and I'm fine having both.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing else here, I'm sure.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Phoenix.
Oh yeah, no, that was everybody.
NBA Deeper Dive is the promo code. Get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. Covers everything we have, all of our player projections, ownership projections, premium Slack, lineup builder, and more. Again, the promo code is NBA Deeper Dive. It's one gigantic word. If you're only interested in NBA DFS, you can sign up for our Awesemo Plus NBA weekly package for $16.95, or for our NBA Weekly Express package, which gives you access to NBA Showdown and single game data. That's only $4.95. So stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Oklahoma City Thunder, 10.5-point dogs, 214 total. No LeBron James for the Lakers. Obviously, no Trevor Ariza, Kendrick Nunn, or Talen Horton-Tucker as well. Lou Dort, questionable for the Oklahoma City Thunder. We will start with the Thunder. Josh Giddey is the most popular piece here, 30-something% owned on FanDuel, 40% owned on DraftKings. I like Josh Giddey a lot, and I've played him a lot. That might be a little high. particularly if the Ayton news comes out and we start to open up more value. The more value we have, I think Giddey comes down a little bit. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is 30% owned on FanDuel, 18% owned on DraftKings. Clearly always interested in a bit of Shai. And then we've got Darius Bazley pulling 22% ownership on DK. The rest of this team isn't getting really touched at all. What are you doing with Giddey, Shai, Bazley? And if you like anybody else, go for it.
I think Giddey looks the best. He gets you guard and forward eligibility on DraftKings. Not sure why he's only a shooting guard on FanDuel, but that makes him really valuable on DraftKings. And just the fact that the mid-range today isn't that good. You know, you've gotten some more value opening up. You've gotten some more top-end guys, but Giddey just is going to help you round out a lot of lineups. I do think that he looks a little bit better if Dort sits. He played 34 minutes last game. I think if Dort plays, you're more likely to get 30 to 32 minutes from Giddey. You've kind of had his playing time jerked around at times this season, but he's also been really productive. Leads the team with a 33.6% assist percentage. He's averaging 1.06 DraftKings points per minute, which is just behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I think production-wise, he looks good regardless of Lou Dort. I feel a little bit better about his minutes if Dort is out. Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't really have a strong take one way or the other. 8,400, I think, is an okay price tag for the ceiling he offers. In competitive games, a lot of times he's giving you 37 to 39 minutes. He's averaging over a fantasy point per minute. I am a little concerned by his lack of assists this year. I think Josh Giddey's really cut into that. He's down to a 20.5% assist percentage from close to 30% last year, but he still has a 27.5% usage rate. So even if his average production is going to come down a bit, he's still got a really high ceiling because of how involved he is offensively. As you know, the second assist guy and the leading usage guy on the team. So still a high ceiling for him. Darius Bazley is kind of strange to me that he's getting that much ownership, but yeah, I get it. You know, he's 4,600. He's averaging 0.9 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's likely to play around 30 minutes if this game's competitive. So I think he projects pretty well. But I feel worse about him than I do Giddey and Gilgeous-Alexander.
All right. Anything else for the Thunder?
Nope.
Close it out with the Lakers. No LeBron James, which makes this decision quite a bit easier. Play a lot of Anthony Davis and play a lot of Russell Westbrook. AD projected for about 40% ownership across both sites. Russell Westbrook is at close to 50 on FanDuel, where he's $1,500 cheaper than he is on DraftKings, 31% on DK. That's not going to keep me away. We've got him at 50 on FanDuel. I had 85 on my last crunch. More than okay with it. I'm going to have a ton of Westbrook. I'm going to have a ton of AD. They should smash Oklahoma City. Do you have any alternate thoughts for AD or Russ?
No. You've got 132 minutes from Russ this year without James on the floor, 128 minutes from Davis. Russ is at 1.53 DraftKings points per minute, 34.9% usage rate, 13.9% rebounding percentage, 44.5% assist percentage, basically Westbrook of every other year. Davis, 32.5% usage rate, 16.5% rebounding percentage, leads the team outside of DeAndre Jordan, 11.1% assist percentage, 1.44 DraftKings points per minute. Davis is averaging 37 minutes per game in the two games without LeBron. Russ is at 36. They just look great here. It's a slate where you didn't have a lot of great options prior to LeBron being ruled out. You have about as good a matchup as you can get against OKC. The Lakers aren't, I mean, they're 14-point favorites, so obviously there is blowout risk, but they're also just like not that good of a team where it's a lock that they're going to blow anybody out. So, and if they do, I mean, how are they blowing a team out if it's not at least one of Westbrook or Davis scoring 1 million points? So I'm getting to both of those guys as much as I possibly can.
Yep. Are you getting to anybody else? Melo pulling 13% ownership on DraftKings at 5,300. He's the only other guy that's getting any sort of love here, which is kind of crazy given how many minutes are left for this team and how everybody outside of AD, Russ, Melo, and Bazemore are sub 4K on DraftKings. And yet I find most of them wildly uninteresting. Outside of, does Malik Monk just fall back into 30 minutes again?
I don't think so. I think Bradley's past him.
I think so too, but I don't know because I think
he starts.
Right. That's the biggest question. I have him in at 24 minutes right now, and I think he's a guy that I would want to be getting to on DraftKings if he's maintaining 2.5% ownership, because I think that there's an actual upside to $3,200 Malik Monk.
I agree with that. I have him at 22 minutes, like 15 to 16 DraftKings points. So, certainly not anything that I'm going crazy on, but I agree that there's at least a path to success. I feel the same way about DeAndre Jordan at 3,400. He's not a great player or anything, but he's 1% owned at 30. You can make this case for Dwight Howard too. 1% owned at sub 4K we know he's going to rebound when he's out there. And, maybe he lucks into like a 10-10 game in 16 minutes or something. It wouldn't be the first time either of them have done that, I'm sure. So more, just large field tournament plays that are going to let you get high upside guys into your lineup, but certainly nothing I'm prioritizing out there. Melo is the third piece for me. He's averaging 30.5 minutes per game in the 2 games without LeBron. Looks like a reasonable option at 5,300.
I'm with you there. Yeah, the Howard Jordan thing is the type of thing you see where they're like 1.5% owned. They score, AD goes to the locker room for like a 4-minute stretch. One of these guys gets 32 fantasy points and ends up in a winning lineup. And people are just like, how did you play those guys? And it's like, well, it's a 5-game slate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you think about it, with Jordan at 3,400, we haven't really talked about guys in that price range we really like outside of, Thibault and KJ Martin.
Frank Kaminsky and JaVale McGee.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot, assuming Ayton's out. So yeah, I mean, that makes them look relatively worse, but I had said it before that I didn't mind assuming Ayton's out because I can always swap. If I have to swap some Frank Kaminsky to DeAndre Jordan, I'll get over it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything else, and we are up against it. Any final thoughts on this slate before we turn it over to the NBA Live Before Lock crew?
Good luck.
There it is, everybody. 440 likes, 2,500 people. Put it up over 500. Give the boys that are coming in next a little bit of a treat. Thank you guys for joining us on this deeper dive. Good luck tonight. Win some money. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Wow, that's a terrible take. I don't understand why the Lakers don't play DeAndre Jordan 25 minutes a night. They should
It is the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show, sponsored by Yahoo. And let me tell you guys about Jordan Klein's shenanigans behind the scenes. He does this thing he's been doing this a lot recently. Every time before we start, he goes, Greg, you ready? Eric, are you ready? We say, yes. And he goes, okay, give me a second. I'm not ready. And then he does it all over again, like a minute later. All right, you guys ready to go? You guys ready? And I don't know what he expects from us. We say yes, and then he's not ready. So it doesn't even matter. But we're here. Jordan's ready. We're able to start the show, sponsored by Yahoo. And we've got an NBA lock with still a lot of moving parts here, because even though we've had some key players ruled out like LeBron James earlier in the day, we still have Donovan Mitchell listed as questionable. DeAndre Ayton is questionable. John Collins is questionable. Furkan Korkmaz is questionable. Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable. Not Bojan, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Royce O'Neal is questionable. Cameron Payne is questionable. Eric, how are you handling the slate with so many players that matter that are listed as questionable?
I have no idea who's going to be in my lineups, and we're 58 minutes before lock. No idea. Zero clue. I know Cade Cunningham's going to be in every single one of them, but other than that, there is not a single thing that I know about this slate. Looking forward to it. I mean, the amount of fade Cunningham, 100% Cunningham. I mean, it is a pretty bipolar topic to be talking about Cade Cunningham. He's 4K on DraftKings. He's 4K. He's 600 on FanDuel. I mean, this is not really even up for debate in my estimation. I'm curious what you think, but he's the only guy I know for a fact I'm going to roster. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's not the only player for a fact I know I'm going to roster. I know I'm rostering Anthony Davis, so I know I'm rostering Russell Westbrook as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Fade Cunningham, good nickname for Jordan Klein with his new haircut today. But let's start by talking about Cade Cunningham, because his entry into the NBA as a top overall pick, it's gone not quite as expected. He's been what the kids call shit. And he hasn't made any. He hasn't made any shots. He's 0 for everything from
Jordan
three.
Klein just spit on his keyboard. He just spit on his keyboard. What did you do, Jordan?
When
Jordan just projectiled on cue all over his stuff. There's 3 monitors. I've seen the setup now, so I know for myself. It spewed when you said shit. It was unbelievable. I don't even know. Wow, he's on the ground. Oh, that was incredible. That is my favorite moment in the history of NBA Live Before Lock now.
I hope his computer burns out. Look over and there's just smoke coming out of it in a second. But I missed. I'm sorry.
He just grabbed the napkin. Did you see that? He just grabbed the napkin to wipe it all off. Oh my god!
Well, yes,
and on cue, Donovan Mitchell ruled out. I mean, It was like the explosion.
All right. God. So what do we even? I mean, I guess. All right. Let's get back to the Cade Cunningham thing in a second, because the Donovan Mitchell thing has now become very important news. By the way, in addition to Donovan Mitchell being ruled out, Royce O'Neal is going to play today. I'm kind of surprised. I just assumed Donovan Mitchell was going to play. He rolled his ankle late in the first half of the Jazz last game. I was watching the game at the time. I took a video and I put it up on Twitter. It was a pretty bad looking ankle turn, but he went to the locker room briefly, came back, looked great in the second half and played really well. So it was something that I didn't think was going to be a concern today. Obviously, it is somewhat of a concern considering he's not playing, but let's head on over to the Utah Jazz. And what do we make of him being out? My initial reaction, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic, these are all guys that I think we should expect extra usage and an extra playing time for. But what are you making of this situation?
All right, so right off the bat, super easy. Anybody, I believe this is Adam's words, not mine, so I'm going to quote him. Anybody who shoots the basketball. That feels like a pretty healthy way to go here. Mike Conley, every site. Jordan Clarkson, every site. Those two specifically. I think Bojan Bogdanovic becomes like the forgotten man sometimes in these spots. And I mean, the guy just shoots the ball phenomenally well. So I think that he's kind of the first guy when you think about tournaments who ends up kind of being third on that pecking order. He's down to 5K over on DraftKings. And that was kind of a guy that I kept my eye out on. And then Joe Ingles just sees such a big bump. Donovan Mitchell, more so than Mike Conley being off the floor, just makes such a difference for Joe Ingles. So extra minutes for him. Every single guy in that starting unit for the Utah Jazz combined with Jordan Clarkson, who on both sites is a guy that Ryan had pointed out yesterday, Rinpack on the Slate Starter Pod was just like, I don't think Donovan Mitchell is going to play. And I think that makes sense. It's November 4th. This is a Utah Jazz team that has title aspirations. And if Donovan Mitchell, your best player, the guy you need to be supersonic in order to win an NBA title coming down the stretch, if he's got his ankle tweaked November 4th, you just don't play him. So I think that this was kind of the right move for them. If there's any kind of lingering issue for him, just let him sit out a night. Who cares? Jordan Clarkson, definitely the guy, though, who I have the most interest in going forward.
All right, so I've got the usage rates up for the start of this season, last season when we have Donovan Mitchell off the court, and Rudy Gobert, the leading fantasy point scorer on the team without him. But whatever, that's to be expected. He's a great fantasy producer either way. But I don't think it's something we look at Rudy Gobert and this massively changes our outlook on him. Slight boost for him, but we've got guys like Mike Conley. He scores 42.56 DraftKings points per 36 minutes when Donovan Mitchell's off the court, and I think we could expect a little more of the offense to flow through him. Jordan Clarkson, 31.3% usage rate and scores 42.46 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. When Donovan Mitchell's off the court, we could expect Jordan Clarkson to play extra minutes. Joe Ingles, not as much of a bump in his overall rates. However, typically in the past, Joe Ingles starts in these situations and he ends up seeing more fantasy production just because there are extra minutes. So the way I'm looking at this, actually, surprisingly, Bojan Bogdanovic has a 27.3% usage rate when Donovan was off the court, but he also saw last year a decrease in efficiency in those minutes with the increased usage. So I don't think it impacts him all that much, but Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley, these guys are all becoming pretty high priority plays for me. And I think they're all guys we want to get in cash game lineups as well.
I'm going to freak out if people put fake news in the chat. This is not the day to do that crap. I just said Mitchell is out. Mitchell is out. Don't pull that crap. It's way too early in the NBA season. We're 53 minutes before lock. This is a big part of the slate. And for you guys to go back and forth when I just said Mitchell is out, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not here for that crap. This is people's money. And if you start putting in the chat stuff like that, you're going to get timed out. And if you do it again, you're going to get banned. Done. Good conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Eric is mad.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That's the kind of fired up you get right before you tell people to play
criminy of Christ.
Right before you tell a bunch of people like Cade Cunningham, who shoots 0% from three. We get fired up and we tell people how to safely invest their money. So, all right, anything else you have to add about this Jazz situation? If not, we could jump back over to talking about.
You want me on this show? You need me on this show. That's what I have for you.
All right, so Jazz situation, I'm updating some projections for those guys. Looks like a whole bunch of guys like Conley, Clarkson, Ingles that I'm going to be getting to. But let's jump into the Cade Cunningham conversation. And we could just reset it, right? Because that went to it fell apart pretty quickly. We're getting into the Cade Cunningham conversation, and we're 3 minutes into the show. Donovan Mitchell gets ruled out. So he's 4,600 on FanDuel. He's 4,000 on DraftKings. The results have been awful for him this year. There's no way around it. But there's still something I think we could pull from it as a positive, which is he's at least last game, no more minutes restriction. He played 30 minutes. He played in garbage time. Even if he didn't make shots, it didn't deter him from taking them. And it's not like he's a bad shooter. People might think that based on his NBA sample size to this point, but bringing up his college stats, which I also did on the strategy show this morning, in college last year, he shot 40% from three. He shot 84.6% from the free throw line. Now, is he going to shoot 40% from three in the NBA? No, the defense is better. The line is farther back, but still just the idea that somebody shot this well from the free throw line at the very least, he's somebody who's very capable of shooting the ball. There's a reason he went number one overall in the draft. He was also dealing with an ankle injury to start the year. So I think there's reasonable reason. I think there's going to be some rust there. But with that said, there's just no way going forward he's going to be priced 4,000 on DraftKings and 4,600 on FanDuel. It's a great spot to buy low on him. I think you have to play him in cash games today. And he is my favorite value play on the slate. And I'm kind of throwing out all the results we've seen so far this season. He's going to get it together eventually. I assume that's kind of the same standpoint you're taking it on.
Yeah. Do we think he's going to be 3 for 22? Is he going to be the worst shooter in NBA history going forward? My guess is no. Do we want to have the conversation about bust, whatever else? No, this is not First Take. What this is a guy who's going to get 25% plus usage going forward. It's a guy who's going to play upwards of 31 minutes, which is what I have him in for today. I see no way around it. Cade Cunningham's the best piece of value, I think, on both sites. So FanDuel as well, I'm locking him in. I'm not going to have a single lineup on FanDuel that doesn't have him here. If he gets anything to go his way in the shooting department, you're looking at massive upside that you're not going to be able to duplicate. He's going to be 6K and you're going to have missed the boat. So everybody who's fading him, enjoy. Just have fun. Best of luck to you. But you're not going to win in the long term doing stuff like that when there's this good of a value play. Dude, why am I so heated up today? What's going on with me?
Well, you're getting married soon, which, by the way, we've got a super chat here. Benjamin Riley is saying someone is getting married soon. Cheers, fellas. By the way, that is for you, not for me, although my brother's also getting married the week after you. So,
green juice diet. Isn't it fun?
Is that what it is? You just got all these extra vitamins in you, and now you're full of piss and vinegar.
It's another California super garbage
chat.
PCOS thing. It's green-tastic. If it's called green-tastic, it's good for you, right?
How much sugar is in it?
That's a great question. Oh, it doesn't have it because it's 55% fruit and vegetable juice smoothie with added super fruits: cucumber, celery, kale, romaine, lettuce, spinach, parsley, orange, banana, avocado, and whole milk.
That is absolutely fantastic. I'm sure those are some spectacular bowel movements. Another super chat from you from CS111. That was great. This is people's money. Get the fake news and jokesters out of here. Amen. Keep up the good work. So 2 super chats in a row coming in for Eric today. And then I thought there was another one in here too. Oh, here we go. Another one. PS from Benjamin Riley. Once again for Eric again. PS. Don't mess with a soon-to-be wedded man. And we had 3 super chats in a row, all pouring in for Eric. So the people
just a man of the
people.
people. I'm a man of the people. Here's the thing. Just to get this out of the way, it's my 1 minute. Here you go. The reason that you're here, that you are watching these shows, is not just to be entertained, but in order to make lineups that can help you make money. We're here to help you. And if you do things that do not help us help you, you're gone. Done. End of story. That's not what we're here for. What we're here is to be interactive, have fun, talk sports, talk this thing that we love doing, which is DFS, this incredible strategy game that presents a different puzzle every single day. And when you get something like Donovan's in, didn't you see Donovan's in? And you keep spamming the chat with it, it wastes our time, it wastes your time, and everybody else can't get the advice that they're actually here for. So stop with that shit. Done. There you go.
Are you not entertained? Eric Lindquist.
Are you not entertained?
All fired up today, Eric. This is the most fired up and angry I think I've ever seen him.
All right. People do shit like that. I'm done. Hey, Yahoo, our sponsor. I'm back. Hello.
Yeah, Yahoo also is the sponsor. And if people aren't aware, we do have a pretty sweet sponsorship with Yahoo, where if you go and sign up at Yahoo and use the link, which I believe is in the description of the video right here on YouTube, you hit on over there, you make a deposit on Yahoo for the first time, play in a contest, you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, get behind the paywall and see what goes on with Eric behind the paywall, all the stuff he does in Discord chat. If you guys think this is fiery, waiting to see the pictures that he sends in there. So go take advantage of that Yahoo offer because you get a month free of Awesemo Plus Platinum. But as long as we're on this guard position talking about what the people really want to hear, as we know, LeBron James out tonight. Another one. I expected LeBron was going to play today. It seems like the Lakers are going to be very cautious of him. LeBron is going to be out for at least the next week. Funny enough, he was listed as questionable with an ankle injury, and apparently it's an abdominal injury he's out with. But whatever. I don't think he's going to play very many regular season games this year. I think that's the main reason they went out and traded for Russell Westbrook. They have somebody who they think could carry a lot of the usage load in the regular season games where they hold LeBron. So let's talk about Russell Westbrook, who on FanDuel is a little bit of a different conversation than DK. DK kind of seems like they priced as if this could happen. FanDuel left him 9,200. I think he's a no-brainer on FanDuel, get a lot of exposure to him. But what are you going to do with him at 10,700 on DK, Eric?
It's interesting because I think we just have to look at it a little bit as a raw points puzzle now. And I'm waiting for some of the ownership to get updated before I can kind of accurately ask that. I thought it was a stretch until you got the Donovan Mitchell news. I mean, you could definitely find paths to get to both. And I was going to be a little bit short of the field. And now, I mean, I got to be thinking that Russell Westbrook's ownership is going to come up because you lose such an obvious piece there for Utah. Now you start getting these pieces. Mike Conley, who's somebody at 6,300. I wouldn't call him value, but he's definitely going to be leaned on as somebody who can play. Jordan Clarkson, 5,300, vaults up the board. Joe Ingles, 4,600, gives you tons of savings. Bojan Bogdanovic, 5K, makes all the sense in the world to be getting to all those guys. Even Royce O'Neal, somebody who's sitting there at 4K, we got to be assuming a lot of minutes for Royce O'Neal. 31.5 is what Awesemo has in there. I think that's about appropriate, maybe more. Somebody who has always taken up a bunch of minutes here, and now there might be a couple extra shots. He's not a prolific fantasy point per minute player, but there's a number of options now that are sub 6K that just are standout options, along with Cade Cunningham. It just makes it pretty easy, I think, to get up to him more. So before I can really accurately say it, I just want to make sure that Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis, their ownership doesn't shoot through the moon, just because I think it's so much easier to get to them now. But Russell Westbrook, as it stands, is he a phenomenal player around the industry? Yeah, but there's a certain level, and the Boom Bust tool does such a good job of kind of showing us exactly what that level is going to be. And so once we get some updates as far as Utah goes, looks like 7 minutes ago there was an update. I'm not sure if that fully encapsulates everything with Donovan Mitchell here. 11 seconds ago, as I hit refresh, ask and you shall receive. Russell Westbrook. Here we go. 23.1% boom percentage. The optimal and ownership isn't updated here yet, so I'll wait to speak on that. But I think he's a phenomenal play.
We're just waiting on an ownership update, and it's so we've got the projections are updated, the ownership will update next, and then the boom bust tool will be updated to follow with some of the optimal lineup stuff. I'm going to rerun my lineups right now because I have everything updated for the Utah news. And I'm kind of curious how this impacts my Westbrook ownership. I was getting to him a ton before. I kind of think this could actually roll back the amount of Westbrook I was getting to, just because, well, at least on DK. FanDuel, it's whatever, because he's mispriced on FanDuel so egregiously. But there's so many guards to get to now on DK that I just wasn't getting to before. Like I wasn't getting to Jordan Clarkson or Mike Conley before because I was assuming Donovan Mitchell was going to be in. These are now spots that are going to be taken up by those guys. And all right, so I have 50% Russell Westbrook now in my most recent run. I had not considerably more, but a little bit more than that before. And to your point, he is a little bit easier to get up to than he was before, but it's spots that I want to be taken with Clarkson, with Conley, with Ingles, and it's just limited the amount of guard spots I get to. And I'm getting to a little bit more of Anthony Davis now, just because it makes a little more sense to pay up at forward. And not to blend too many things together, but how much of an issue, if any, do you have with playing Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook in the same lineups?
I don't have any issue. I mean, they're going to absorb all the usage. Also, Russell Westbrook has proven that he doesn't necessarily need to score the basketball to be extremely prolific in fantasy. So, I mean, Anthony Davis, he's going to be a little bit more volume based, but the double-double is almost like a near lock and virtual certainty for him now in this spot. Russell Westbrook fills it up in every category. I have no problem. I mean, I'm not going to make any kind of a rule to exclude them. I have no problem overlapping a bunch of lineups with them together. They just kind of stand out as number one and number two as the guys that you want to be paying up for on this slate. And it's not really particularly close for me. I mean, Joel Embiid is sitting there in the wings, but he's 10-5, 9,800 on FanDuel. I think is more of the conversation that exists there. Jimmy Butler, 9,600. I don't think it's terribly hard to get to him either. And, talk about somebody who's just been outrageous. And now Christian Wood with his price hike. I really liked him against the Lakers. We had talked about that. He's power forward center eligible over on FanDuel, and that makes a big difference. But center only, 8,800, feels like a little bit of an overpay here at this spot now for him. So I'm siding with a bunch of Anthony Davis, where you can play him at two positions, siding with a bunch of Russell Westbrook as well. And I do think that that's a sharp point by you, where now the guard position just got a lot more stacked because you want to play a ton of Conley, a ton of Clarkson, a ton of a bunch of these other guys that are guard eligible, even Joe Ingles at shooting guard. So that might take away some of the positionality over on DK. I'm very, very fascinated where we're going to see that ownership come in on those two studs now, though.
And then one final point that I'm going to ask you about guards that I'm interested in. Do you assume that Malik Monk starts again for LeBron James? Because I'm surprised that, and I'll refresh the ownership to make sure this is still the case. We've got an ownership update. The last time LeBron was out, Malik Monk started in his place and had, not the greatest fantasy game, though, but he played a bunch of minutes and he started for LeBron. He's 3,200 on DK, project for 2.6% ownership. I feel like I'm almost missing something there. Do you not? Do you
Malik
assume...
Monk started the last two. Or sorry, Avery Bradley started the last two. That's what I meant. Avery Bradley did.
That LeBron was out, though?
The last two games, Avery Bradley. I guess he was in the one game, then he was out the other one. So LeBron...
But Avery Bradley started in place of DeAndre Jordan.
Oh, there you go. Yep, that's right. Yep, you're correct. So
this is
Malik Monk.
So here's what I'm confused by with Malik Monk is, so the last two games LeBron was out, Malik Monk started and played 32 and 39 minutes. And nobody's rostering him today, at least per our latest ownership projection. Am I missing something there? Like, why? Because I haven't projected fairly well. He's one of my favorite value plays on the slate, and just nobody's rostering him. Am I wrong to think he's going to start today?
I mean, I caught the tail end of that show. I caught the tail end. I caught the beginning and the tail end of the last show. And I think they were talking a little bit about it, where it was Avery Bradley who had kind of maybe surpassed him a little bit on the pecking order. Kent Bazemore has been playing, the 27 to 30 minute kind of role here for the Lakers, even regardless of LeBron. He's been out there quite a bit in these spots and can absorb some of the time. Rajon Rondo, has been in and out of certain spots. Obviously hasn't been in the rotation the last couple, but the 27th, 26th, he was in there. Both of those were sans LeBron, the OKC and the San Antonio Spurs road games. I think he's kind of the interesting one for me. If you want to go like really off the board where our projections have no ownership going, I'd be more inclined to go to Rondo as a result of the news than Malik Monk. The other thing about Malik Monk getting no ownership, I mean, he's at the shooting guard position where Clarkson's going to be jammed a bunch now. I don't think he's necessary in the context of this slate anymore. I see where you're getting at, and we have him for right around 20 minutes, but 20 minutes for a guy who's 3K there, 3,200 on DK You've got Cade Cunningham, you've got Clarkson, you've got Bogdanovich, you've got Ingles, you've got so many other guys that can kind of go in and out of there. I don't mind getting to a little bit now that you're kind of talking me through this a little bit, but he's not going to be somebody where I want to take like a drastic heavyweight approach. He's not a fantastic fantasy point per minute scorer over the last calendar year, 0.63 DraftKings points per minute. So I'm probably a little bit lighter on it, but Rondo is the guy that for me, I already had pegged. I have like 10% of him. And I think that's kind of a weird stand to be taking, but I'm looking for any way to get different. And I think the chalk is so much more consolidated now that finding one different piece is really all you need to try to do on this slate. And Rondo could be that.
Yeah, and I mean, the Lakers could start DeAndre Jordan again. My assumption on their starting lineup is Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, Malik Monk, Avery Bradley, and Kent Bazemore. Those are the five that I think start for the Lakers today with Anthony Davis playing center. They could just as easily say, hey, LeBron's out. We're going to go with the big lineup again, start DeAndre Jordan at center. That's been such a train wreck for the Lakers this year, the DeAndre Jordan minutes. They've gotten outscored. I don't know what the exact number is off the top of my head, but they've been outscored by a ridiculous amount when DeAndre Jordan's on the court. Basically, all of the winning the Lakers have done in terms of outscoring opponents has been with Anthony Davis at the center. So I tend to think that is the best lineup for them is with Malik Monk and Avery Bradley both starting in the backcourt. So that's what I have it pegged as. But once again, it's a start time that isn't for another 4 hours. And, we should hopefully get a starting lineup before then. And if that's not the case, then I'll get off of Malik Monk. But as of right now, with the expectation that he's starting, I assume he plays somewhere in the neighborhood of 34 to 36 minutes, and that would be enough for me to want to get to him at 3,200. As far as other guards go, is there anybody we have not touched on that's going to be important to you tonight?
We haven't talked about the Philly situation, and I think Philly maybe goes a little, I'm not going to say they're going to go by the wayside, but I'm trying to make Shake Milton a thing. Shake Milton, please be a thing. Just try to be a thing one time. He's sub 4K. I think on the Stars and Scrubs nature of a lot of this too, 3,900 for him. I would rather go his direction more so than Maxey at 5,500. I'm just going to go all the way down to the floor now and really try to Stars and Scrubs it. I'd much rather play Jordan Clarkson. I'd much rather play Joe Ingles than Tyrese Maxey. I'm saving a little bit, and I just find them to be better plays here at this point. I'm not going to completely remove Tyrese Maxey, but that game also is a little bit earlier. There could be some different starting lineup news we get, especially before that Lakers game, as you were kind of alluding to. That might be a spot where we can find some value, but yeah, for me, I prefer the Utah value over some of him, but Maxey and Milton, I'm going to prefer getting to more Milton. So I'm a little bit over the field over on TK, that 25%. And I don't want to try to lock up too many of the roster spots, but I think I kind of have to in these two early games. They're just too good of values. So he's there. I don't want to play any Seth Curry. That's a gigantic tag at 5,900 for him over on DK. There's like no ownership going his direction either. But how are you kind of prioritizing the Philadelphia guards?
Not really getting to him at this point. I was earlier in the day. Okay. Like I liked Tyrese Maxey. I thought Shake Milton was okay to take shots on. I kind of hope Korkmaz just plays at this point because I feel like we have an ample amount of value. I don't want to get to a point where we have a 5-game slate and every single team has value here. And as it currently stands, I think the Lakers offer better value than Philly. I think that some of the Houston, I like Schengen a lot on Houston with Daniel Tice out from Utah now. I really like the Utah. I really like the cheapest Utah guys with Donovan Mitchell out. And to me, all of those guys are higher priorities than what we have over on Philly. Early in the day, when we first saw that Joel Embiid was listed as questionable, I assumed that he was going to be out. But then, he gets listed as questionable, and then 30 minutes later, Doc Rivers says he expects him to play, which, I mean, we've talked about Doc Rivers before. We know he's a dirty, filthy liar, but I'm taking him at his word that Embiid plays. Do you have any concerns with Embiid's status for tonight? Because that would drastically change how I view Philly.
Oh, I don't trust a damn word that Doc Rivers says. Not a single one. The guy lies. He lies out of every corner of his mouth. He just lies. And then he lies some more. So Joel Embiid, the correct wording, if I'm right about this, was that he intends to play. Well, I also intend to win $100,000 tonight. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to do it. But that's my intention, is to win 100K.
Not with that attitude.
I'm just saying, I'm fiery as it is, but definitely, absolutely love it. So I'm going to be loving it. If you get no Joel Embiid, we know we're going to play Drummond, and we have 35 minutes. I would have to assume, unless it's going to be a Paul George situation, in which case you're going to want to stay on for a minute or two after the fact. But looking at it, and I'm going to be ready to go. So I'm not concerned about it, but something to definitely stay aware of. Andre Drummond becomes the best play on the slate in the event that you get the late news, especially 35 minutes before that game locks.
By the way, we've got another super chat here for your fire and vigor From Sam Bennett, thank you for the super chat. This is for all the Eric late swap rants that have forced me to incorporate it more effectively with Fantasy Cruncher. Wasn't easy to figure out, but well worth it. Took down the number 3 sharpshooter, or I guess the $3 sharpshooter twice in the past week, all due to late swap. So first, congratulations, Sam. And then also, guys, you should be listening to Eric, also following on Twitter at Eric Lindquist, where you'll know he'll be retweeting when he comes on the shows, typically with me for basketball, but you get all that fired up Eric, who's about to get married and has got some anger to get out on these shows, apparently. All right.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate you, guy. It's never going to change. Late swap is our edge. We're going to keep talking about it until forever. So appreciate you so much.
All right. Let's jump over to the forwards, and I guess we could touch on Anthony Davis here really quickly because we've already talked about the Lakers situation, Russell Westbrook. This is really the last piece of the Lakers news that I think we have to hit on here until we get a starting lineup, if it happens to be the case. Anthony Davis, to me, he is currently my most rostered pay-up option. It would have been Russell Westbrook had it not been for the case that we have all these guards available. And I'm talking about DraftKings. FanDuel, it's still Russell Westbrook. DK, though, it's going to be Anthony Davis just because there's so many guards to get to. I find it a little more easy to pay up at forward, but still, I'm getting overweight to the field on Russell Westbrook, overweight to the field on Anthony Davis. How do you like AD today?
I love AD. AD is the pay up. He's the priority. He's the best play on the slate when it comes to the pay up options. I think having him at power forward as well, now that we have a plethora of guards that we want to be playing, a number of those guys from Utah, we just need to be playing all of the Anthony Davis in the world. If I had to pick one, if I'm making a lineup and I'm deciding that I need to fade one of these guys for whatever reason, I'm more inclined to side with Anthony Davis just because of his positionality, playing him at power forward center, being able to have some of that positionality works out so nicely in lineups. So I think Anthony Davis is definitely the guy that I want to get to the most. There's really no comparable pivot for me on either side. I mean, LeBron is out, so there you go. Jason Tatum, 9,400. That is just an asinine kind of price tag for him on FanDuel. Because does he have upside there? Sure, but I think just raw points on this slate are so important, and we have them projected 15.5 fantasy points apart. And then Bam Adebayo there, 8,800. I think that's good. He's getting a ton of rostership there as well. It's just such a gap between him and that position. Whereas Russell Westbrook, now you have so many great point per dollar plays that it just finds it. That doesn't mean I don't like Russell Westbrook, but Anthony Davis definitely the priority.
Yeah, and once again, I'm overweight to both of them, but either way, I do think that AD is the slightly better play of the two. Now, we are loading up a lot of super chats coming in again. And first right here, Jordan Lockhart. Once again, Jordan Lockhart, the guy wins like $1 billion every day. He's in, he just doesn't even ask a question, just throws in 1999. And I know what it's all about because we see him on top of the leaderboards all day. Jordan Lockhart, thank you for the super chat and congrats for all your wins as of late. Darren Unger is asking for FanDuel, Joe Ingles or Matisse Thybulle. So I generally like Thybulle a lot better for FanDuel than DraftKings just because of all the defensive stats. But I have Ingles projected higher today with the news that Donovan Mitchell's out. I expect that Ingles is going to start. He's traditionally played really well in this role in the past. But Ingles or Thybulle, which do you prefer, Eric?
Can the answer be both? I like both. But yeah, no, Joe Ingles is the priority. They're the exact same number. And if you're playing one of the two, I'm going to go with Ingles now. Yeah, that rostership's going up a little bit here, but I'm getting myself to a lot more Ingles, and Thybulle played a ton of minutes last night, no question about it. But with Embiid out there, I mean, there's his offensive game is starting to come into form here, but coming in a little bit more rostered as well. I like them both. I'm going to play both of them a lot, but in one lineup, if you're making one lineup to rule them all and one lineup to find them, I'm going to go with Ingles.
All right. And did we get another super chat in here too? Or did that get?
We did.
I think
we did. Who are your core plays for FP and DK GPP from our guy Malcolm Revamp? I'll let you take this one.
All right. So favorite plays. Here are the guys that I'm getting the most exposure to today. It is Anthony Davis, Cade Cunningham, Bam Adebayo, Joe Ingles, Russell Westbrook, Jordan Clarkson. I call that my core. Is there anybody in there you disagree with, Eric, or anybody you would add to that to repeat? Anthony Davis, Cade Cunningham, Bam Adebayo, Joe Ingles, Russell Westbrook, Jordan Clarkson.
I think that's a fantastic core. I love Bam. I've probably been the biggest Bam truther for ever, but Bam Adebayo, his assist rate drops a lot with Jimmy Butler out there. Bam Adebayo, I always nearly lock button every time Jimmy Butler's off the floor, but he's on the floor and he's doing a lot of meaningful things. This has been really, really great. The two of them in tandem here. This Miami team looks really freaky, especially if Tyler Hero plays up to this level, but he's the one guy that I'd probably be willing to refrain out of anybody there. I just really like your boy Rudy Gobert today. And I'm, 8,600 for him. I think that 500 is pretty easy to find now to be able to get to him at the center position. So I kind of put Rudy Gobert for tournaments. Again, just talking GPPs coming in with, 10% less rostership over on DraftKings, over on FanDuel looking there. The gap is, they're about exactly the same own. And Rudy Gobert just projects through the moon. He's the better play, $600 less than Bam Adebayo over there. So I'm going to be going with a little bit more Rudy Gobert. You get Donovan Mitchell off the floor. Obviously, I'm not expecting Rudy Gobert to stand into any kind of offensive prominence here, but the rebounding numbers have been off the charts and they're going to continue to be. So I'm going to be prioritizing him as well. So I'll add him into the mix.
Yeah, and on the Bam Adebayo front, and I guess we could just include him in this discussion as well. I know he only has center eligibility on DraftKings, but we do have Bam Adebayo with forward and center eligibility on FanDuel. So here's what I really like about Bam Adebayo today. This matchup against the Boston Celtics, they have no rebounding on this team whatsoever. This team could not pull down a rebound to save their life. The other day, the Boston Celtics, they had a big lead in the fourth quarter of a game against the Chicago Bulls. We get into the fourth quarter. I forget exactly what the score was at the time, but the Celtics end up getting outscored 38-11 in the fourth quarter and pulled down 0 defensive rebounds for the entire fourth quarter. This is a team that severely lacks size in the front court, and I think it's something that Bam Adebayo could really exploit. The one thing, to your point with Bam Adebayo, his assist rate is down this year with Kyle Lowry in the mix for sure, but I think the rebound numbers are going to make up for it. We've seen from Bam Adebayo recently 10 rebounds, 15 rebounds, 8, 10, 14. I think he's going to be somebody who could potentially be 12, 13 rebounds a game this year. And so in this matchup against the Celtics, I haven't projected for a lot of rebounds, so he's somebody who ultimately makes it into my lineup as a core play. That's really the main reasoning that I'm on Bam. Is he somebody you're just not really on at all today?
Oh, no. I'm playing him, but I wanted to add, I like Rudy a little bit more. So I have a slight bit of a preference, especially because I'm getting that ownership discount over on DraftKings. And then on FanDuel, I just project Rudy Gobert for more and he's cheaper. And so for me, that becomes at the same exact level of rostership. Just give me more Rudy Gobert, but I still have, I'll give you the exact number here once I finish all my Utah stuff. But I'm assuming that based on the last run, 35% that I got to Rudy Gobert, 26% that I got to Bam. And I think Bam's going to go down a little bit more here on this next run. So it's about at the field for all intents and purposes. And then on FanDuel, I basically have 2 shares of Gobert. So I have 41% of him there. And then looking at Bam, I have 18%. So I'm just a little bit lower on him. Obviously, he has the power forward eligibility, which is a big deal over on FanDuel, but he's also going to be very, very popular. And I'm just siding with all the Anthony Davis at that position and kind of moving on with my day.
All right. Now, in terms of the latest news, Joel Embiid is going to be playing tonight. And so that is something that I think we were kind of assuming was going to be the case, but we weren't exactly sure because Doc Rivers is not always the most honest of customers. But really quick reaction to Joel Embiid. How are you going to handle him being in? I'm still kind of dubious about his workload, mostly because it's a game. I don't think they need to play a ton of minutes of Joel Embiid to be able to beat the Detroit Pistons today. So maybe this is a little bit foolish on my part, but I'm not really getting to Joel Embiid much today. Are you?
I'm curious if I'm going to here. 9,600 on FanDuel is where I want to kind of do it. I'm not going to get a single share of him on DK. Again, this is why you can play multiple sites. You don't have to make these kind of decisions and say, oh, I'm going to fade Embiid. Well, no, I'm going to play Embiid on the site where he's 9,600 as opposed to 10,500. Just makes a lot more sense to me. And so for this run, I'm sure I'm going to get to a little bit here, but he's already coming in with like nearly 25% rostership. And, 34 minutes has been like a hard cap for him. It seems like that number just never really changes. And you could basically plug him in for, almost 1.5 fantasy points per minute, and his ceiling is going to look, still good. But I mean, that's just not a median outcome that I really want to be screwing. Like it's just not problematic. It's very problematic for me to prioritize Embiid compared to Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook, because even their bad games are going to be kind of rivaling his average games right now. And that becomes a problem. So in tournaments, Joel Embiid, sure, get to a little bit, but don't go nuts, because I'm not sure that the minutes can really rival what you're going to see from AD and Russell Westbrook.
All right, and we did get a fresh run of ownership here updated 2 minutes ago. So if you haven't done that already, Eric, refresh it. So we're looking at the most recent data here, and we'll run off some of the more popular plays on DraftKings and FanDuel today. And most of them, guys, we've already talked about. So right now on DK, the most popular plays Anthony Davis, Cade Cunningham, Josh Giddey, who we'll hit on next because he is forward eligible on both sides. Bam Adebayo, Matisse Thybulle, Jordan Clarkson, Russell Westbrook. He has dropped to 24.7% ownership now on DraftKings. So he has become less popular on DK, still 45% owned on FanDuel. And the most popular plays on FanDuel, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, Mike Conley, Matisse Thybulle, Chris Paul, Josh Giddey, Bam Adebayo, and then Rudy Gobert right there next to Adebayo. So we haven't hit on Giddey yet, and I wanna get your opinion on him. And I like Josh Giddey a whole lot this year. I think that he's a very fantasy-friendly game. His ability to score a little bit. He's been putting up defensive stats. The rebounds have been there. The assists have been there. So it all comes together as a pretty nice fantasy package. I'm getting to a point, though, where I think he might just be a touch too popular. There's a lot of plays on the slate that I really like, particularly forward. And, Joe Ingles is somebody who is now viable. We've got Bojan Bogdanovic. We've got Matisse Thybulle. And these are all guys that I think do warrant a whole bunch of consideration. And I'm getting to Josh Giddey. I'm just not sure that over 30% is where I want to be with him. Do you feel differently than that?
No, I don't. The one case, here's kind of my case against him, and then I'll kind of give you the case for him. Against him is he's super popular. He's 5,800, and if you're talking late swap, there's not really a guy in his price range in that last game. You really have to be looking at the Houston-Phoenix game is kind of like the swap off of him. A lot of times, if you're going to play a popular play like this, you want to have an avenue to hit eject in the event that your lineups aren't doing well, or in the event that there's somebody that you want to be bypassing on the leaderboard in the event you have a really good lineup, but it looks identical, and you know that the other guy is probably going to be having Josh Giddey, and you need to play catch up. The nearest pivot would be Carmelo Anthony at power forward 5,300. You could play Giddey at the forward position. He's more than likely going to be down in one of those spots anyway. So the forward or utility spot. Carmelo Anthony is kind of your main pivot. Darius Bazley, 4,600, is garnering a ton of attention already too, but I don't want to leave ever an NBA 1,200 or something like that on the table. It's just much better pricing that you're going to be running into an NBA, and I don't want to be leaving that kind of equity on the table. So for me, the case against him is that. The case for him is everything that you said, where he's filling up a box score. He's been extremely productive. And in the event that you're looking for somebody in the late night hammer that can kind of hold your lineup down and kind of push you up the leaderboard in the event that you have something that's going to win, he's probably going to come through. He hasn't burned you yet. A lot of these rookies have very solid minutes. We saw in a competitive game against the Clippers that he played 35 minutes. You're going to see him play a lot more minutes in competitive games. So I can kind of make a case for it both ways. It really depends how chalky the rest of your lineups are. If you're hand building, it's easy to look at it and say, all right, this lineup definitely wants to have Josh Giddey in it. And you can try to react to late news if you do have pieces of that Houston and Phoenix game as well to react to how your lineups are doing. But I'm more inclined to be with you too, where I'm going to be about half the field. And I think that that's the right move based on what I want to do in the early games.
Yeah. And once again, Josh Giddey is somebody who is in about a quarter of my lineups, just not quite as much as the field, just getting to him in about a third of their lineups. Another super chat here. This is from Trevor Beaver, top cash game plays for DraftKings. And to be honest, it's not too much different from my core group of plays I had before. I think Jordan Clarkson, Russell Westbrook, Bam Adebayo, Joe Ingles, Cade Cunningham, Anthony Davis. I think all of those guys make for very exceptional cash game plays. You could throw Matisse Thybulle into the mix because of his popularity. Is there anybody who I didn't mention there that you think for cash games is a really strong option, or is there anybody there for cash games you don't think is a good option?
You said Ingles, you said Clarkson, you said Russell Westbrook,
Cunningham,
Anthony Davis.
maybe,
Those are like
Russ.
the first four in. Well, what was that?
Yeah, and the other thing with Bam Adebayo, because I know that you weren't quite as high as him as I was, but he's so popular on DraftKings, at least in our current ownership projection, that it's just not all that problematic to me to play him in a cash game. Maybe you could say the price is a little bit too high for him. I have it projected as a little bit too low, but still, if he's going to be ownership in the upper 20% range on DK, I think that still makes him viable for cash games.
I 100% agree. Again, for me, I was talking tournaments where all things being equal in ownership, I want to go that direction. And we just got the John Collins news. So let's jump to that.
All right. So John Collins tonight will play. Bogdan Bogdanovic will play. this makes the Hawks as a team fairly unappealing to me. It's a really tough matchup against the Utah Jazz. If we were going to have one or two of these guys out, I thought there was a situation where maybe Cam Reddish would really look like a good value play. Maybe there would be DeAndre Hunter would look better as a value play. But now that we know that Collins and Bogdanovich are in, we just have a fully healthy Hawks team going up against a Jazz team that, is one of the best defenses in the NBA and has been for a handful of years. So nothing I really like from Atlanta. How about you?
I have like 5% of Trae Young. I think I have like 4% of Clint Capella. I'm probably not going to have either of those things coming out of this. I was looking at maybe Cam Reddish being a guy at 4,600 you could have played in the event that Bogdanovich ended up being ruled out. But now that he's in, now that we get John Collins in, it's just a bunch of hodgepodge. You could take tournament shots on any of these dudes, but Trae Young 9,900 is just such a gigantic tag to be paying on this slate. Sure, you can get to that ceiling, but his rebound rate just isn't ever going to be something where you can justify that kind of a number compared to Russell Westbrook. He really needs to just have a ceiling shooting performance, and so long as all those guys are in, it's just not a very appealing spot.
All right, and once again, another super chat from our guy Darren Unger on FanDuel. We've got a 3v3 question here. It is Gobert, Matisse Thybulle, Christian Wood, or Joel Embiid, Kevin Porter Jr., I assume, and then Basley, he wrote. I assume that means Darius Bazley. That is the Gobert, Thybulle, Wood combination for me. What about you, Eric? Do you have those names in front of you?
Same. And I loved Christian Wood over on DraftKings, and I loved him on every site last time around. I'll say the only site that I really like him on today is going to be on FanDuel there. I think that's going to be where you want to be playing him. 7,900 is just a low tag. Happy to be playing him over there. And the Embiid, Porter, Bazley. I mean, Embiid, it's a low number. I still don't want to be screwing too much with that. I think you can get equal center play for less, and that becomes appealing for me. Joel Embiid maybe becomes a forgotten man, but it doesn't look like it in our ownership. So Gobert, Thybulle, Wood, definitely the one I want.
All right, we getting this Furkan Korkmaz news anytime soon? 18 minutes until the game starts. TikTok doc. Fun. We've got time is of the essence, my friend. Anything else from a forward perspective that you want to talk about? I feel like we've hit on a lot of these guys as we've gone, especially with the Jazz news. That makes up a lot of my forward exposure. Anybody else here that we have not yet hit on that you want to bring up for as a forward?
Yeah, we should talk Jae'Sean Tate for 1 second, just because I think he's going to play a lot more minutes than what we have projected for him, right around 28. He played 35 against the Lakers in that close game. We just got Furkan Korkmaz ruled out, so we should probably jump to that.
All right, so screw.
Yeah, never mind Jae'Sean Tate. Sorry, Jae'Sean Tate. You're not as much of a priority as me removing everything right now. There you go.
Jae'Sean Tate, this is an assault on you as a person and your character. We no longer care about you. We're moving on to.
Thank you so much, Duran, the news god, keeping me updated.
We don't care about you, Jae'Sean Tate. We don't care about you, Jae'Sean Tate. There's important players like Furkan Korkmaz to discuss. So I'm going to run over to the Philadelphia 76ers. Also, I just want to give out a quick prop bet because we do have our new tool over at Awesemo.com, Odd Shopper, which is delivering a free way to look at some of the best overall value bets you could get from a prop betting perspective in NBA and NFL. Really, really neat tool, which is also free to use. Go check it out. But Rudy Gobert, somebody who Eric and I have talked about a lot recently for his rebounding prowess. His over-under once again set at just 13.5 rebounds. We've been projected for over 16 over at Awesemo.com. So if you're looking for a prop bet to play today, head on over to Odd Shopper, check those out. And my favorite one on the board right now is Rudy Gobert over 13.5 rebounds. And now I'm just going to assume you agree with me because you also like Rudy Gobert today.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this right now. I would go over to Odd Shopper if I were you guys and start looking at how to use the shop, NBA shop, NFL stuff. We might be having some promotions coming up very soon for people who know how to navigate over at Odd Shopper quickly and effectively. I believe Tuesday might be a date that we're looking at doing such things. It's a 3-game slate. It'll be pretty chill. And so I think we're going to have some opportunities. So learn how to use the player function, learn how to be able to sort by the teams, because the quicker and more efficiently you're able to do that and find the best bets on the board, the better it might be for you guys to be able to win some free stuff. So look forward to being able to chat with that. But 13.5 rebounds for Rudy Gobert, 44% expected ROI, 77% expected win percentage. You're able to sort by those largest to smallest. You're able to sort expected ROI, largest to smallest. You can do it by team name, player name, learn how to use that functionality. And yeah, we're going to be talking a lot of Odd Shopper soon because this new feature is just way too cool not to.
All right. And I'm looking, did we get a starting lineup in here for the. No, we did not. So
all we have is
Keith Pompey saying that Furkan Korkmaz is out, but Joel Embiid will play. So Joel Embiid, which about so many injury updates on Joel Embiid, just to find out that he would ultimately end up playing. Which, how do you, now that we're looking at Korkmaz not being in, who do you think is the number one value play that benefits here? And is there anybody you want to get to in particular? Because I'm just kind of looking through the 76ers, and I was already getting to Matisse Thybulle. I don't know that I'm going to all of a sudden get to a bunch of somebody else. I just think there's better value plays already available to us. So I know people are going to like George Niang because he's played decently in the last couple of games. I don't think I love anything here.
I love Shake Milton. Shake Milton becomes much more interesting. We had him around 22 minutes. I'm just kind of figuring out what I want to do with all the minutes here. You can't give Matisse Thybulle anymore, and him being on the floor more isn't going to necessarily affect his usage. It's going to just be him on the floor. So whether or not he plays 38 minutes with or without somebody on the floor. I mean, he had a 5% usage yesterday against Chicago. Count it, 5. That's not very much. So Shake Milton, if we give him 27, 28 minutes, I mean, he's been bad the last 2, but I think 3,900 mitigates some of that risk. He's the main guy that I'm giving a bump to. Oh, Nikes, here we go. He's in the starting lineup. So there you go.
All right. So that is definitely going to change how I feel about Shake Milton, because I thought they were just going to go with like Niang or some other low points from a fantasy producer, but Shake Milton starting, I think, is interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's somebody who's capable of taking a lot of shots. So number one, I think he becomes a very good value play now. But then number two, also, I think he kind of takes away from guys like Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid a little bit, just because this is another capable shooter, ball handler, usage guy on the court that otherwise would not have been out there, or at least I didn't expect to be out there starting.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it changes the dynamic of him. And also, it's late breaking, 13 minutes to go before the slate. This didn't happen 40 minutes ago. This happened 13 minutes ago. I say it all the time, but the timing of the news can be as important as the news itself. And so the timing of this is late. Shake Milton was somebody who was already popping, I think, in a number of projection models, including ours, but part of that was mitigated. Like his upside was mitigated by the fact we only projected him for 22 minutes. I'm bumping him up to 27.5 right now, and I'm getting him in a ton of lineups. He's kind of a pivot off of, I mean, all the Utah value is still going to be popular. You should still play them. But as you said, I think Tyrese Maxey does take a little bit of a bump down for me. He was already somebody I was looking to short. I'm looking to short him even further here now in this spot. Niang, you can still play Niang. I don't have an issue with it. He's just somebody who's going to have to get there on volume shooting more than anything else. And if you expect him to be shooting 50% like he has the last 2 outings and be somebody who makes 4 of 8 from 3, he's not going to add a whole lot else in other statistical categories, but he scored 21 and 18 raw points. I'm just going to give him a little bit of a downgrade as well. Joel Embiid still is Joel Embiid. It's not like it's going to take away a ton of his usage, but I just think Shake Milton becomes really, really interesting. And I mean, I feel smart just saying that he was going to get plugged in there as somebody that I wanted to get to more of, and then we get the starting lineup. But that's kind of a fortuitous happening. And now I think it just secures his minutes even further. Plus, in a blowout, I think he's probably the one guy out of that starting group that's still going to see a ton of minutes. Him and Thybulle, I think, are pretty immune to that.
I wouldn't go that far. I still don't think they play in garbage time. I also just don't think a blowout is all that likely. So it's,
Same,
I mean,
yeah.
The spread in this game is 7 points anyway. So it's not something I'm massively concerned about. But yeah, I don't think I think Thybulle could be on the court in garbage time. I wouldn't expect Milton to be, especially because they've been a little cautious with his health so far this year. But that's belaboring the point. I think he's a really good play, and I'm refreshing my lineups right now to see how much Shake Milton I'm ultimately going to end up getting to. And I mean, he's in 55% of my lineups now. Are you above or below that number, Eric?
I don't know, but I just unclicked the lock button on Cade Cunningham on DraftKings. I just want everybody to know that. I might get like 95% of him. That's what I'm still kind of expecting to get, but I might get a share or two where he's not showing up. I mean, I have him projected for 28.5 fantasy points right now at 4K. So my assumption is he's going to show up in just about every single lineup, but I no longer have the lock just clicked on him on both sites. I think it's going to be a little bit of a mix and match situation on FanDuel, especially where now you have Milton, you have Clarkson, you have all these other guys with tons of upside. I don't even necessarily think 30 from Cade Cunningham gets it done for you on this slate with the number of other options there. So not somebody that I was anticipating to be lowering at any point here, but I'm not going to have 100% like I was just assuming I was going to have at the beginning of this show.
So now the hard-hitting question: are you getting to more exposure of Shake Milton or Cade Cunningham? It is still Cade for me.
Yeah, it's still going to be Cade Cunningham. There's no way that it's not. But let me just finish it up here. I will hit as we go, and I will give you the exact number here. I have 96%. It just finished up. 96% Cade Cunningham, 76% Shake Milton. I'm going to probably cap Shake Milton here, probably like 65%. That's the quick, easy way to do it when you're on a stream rather than like trying to go through an entire process. But I'm going to have a lot of both of them. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. You know what sucks about this is, so some of this news comes out and then all of a sudden it's like, I really like Joe Ingles and Jordan Clarkson, which by the way, I still like them. I just don't like that I end up getting to less of them when I liked them so much before. And now it's like, where do they go? Can I bring them back? Do you know what do you know what I mean? Where it's like I'm rerunning the lineup and I'm just not getting to as much ownership of these guys as I want. But at the same time, I just want to get to a lot of Shake Milton, and it kind of feels like something that just has to happen.
NBA DFS feels like a seesaw sometimes, where you're trying to find that perfect middle balance to have the seesaw just kind of sit there. But for whatever reason, it always ends up on one end or the other. You can't really finish like on the flat line. So I'm getting to less of those guys, but I'm still getting to, I think, over the field. I would assume that I'm still going to be over the field. I mean, I got to tell you one thing. I'm just going to throw this out there. Rondo's going to be sub 1% owned, and the guy could play legitimately 24 minutes, 22 minutes here in this spot. I'm just going to keep him. He's going to be somebody that I still, probably get to 8-10%. Any pivot you make, you better see the path to upside for them, because the value is so strong now between Milton, between Thibault, between Ingles, between Clarkson. This is not a slate to go screwing around. I mean, I'm making a stand on like one guy. Jae'Sean Tate, I was about to talk about. I don't even think I'm going to get to him in like 10% of lineups anymore. And he was somebody that I was planning on making a strong stand. That's how much can change in the course of, 52 minutes we've been on the stream.
Yeah, and let's also now talk about the DeAndre Ayton situation, because he's listed as questionable play. We haven't been able to hit on centers, and that's because so much of the news has popped up. Although over the course of the show, we've still basically hit on the majority of the centers that we like. We've talked about Rudy Gobert, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis. We haven't talked about Schengen yet, but he's one of my favorite value plays on the slate as far as big men go. No Daniel Tice in the picture. He struggled in his last start, which is his first NBA start, but he's been a really good pointsman and fantasy producer. So I think that Schengen is somebody who is still a really strong value play if you're looking to go cheap at center. But how are you gonna approach DeAndre Ayton now, where kind of the forgotten piece of value on the slate is if Ayton doesn't play, there's Frank Kaminsky, there's JaVale McGee to consider, and nobody's going to roster these guys at this point because there's so many other value plays to look at. What are you going to be doing with the Suns and their injury report?
That's a great question, because I forgot that they were on the slate, because I'm just kind of getting involved in everything else. And that's really the one piece of news we're kind of waiting on here at the time. But we all saw Frank Kaminsky went completely nuts. Everybody knows that I'm very sad about that, because I pivoted to some Jalen Smith thinking he might be a guy that ended up getting a little extra run. He played the 9 minutes against Cleveland on the 30th. And I thought, considering Kaminsky hadn't played since opening night, he maybe had a path for it. Well, no, it was Kaminsky night. Kaminsky right now we have for 5 minutes. Of course, I think he could be a candidate for a surprise start above McGee. McGee's been somebody that has started for Golden State, started for the Lakers, been an energy guy in that starting rotation. But even so, there's been times where he's been like the de facto guy off the bench, been an energy outlet. And, Kaminsky started that second half ahead of him. I mean, I don't want to say that I want to make any kind of a stand. The problem with investing in that is Kaminsky's 3,500, and you could be sitting with a flat zero in the event that you get Ayton ruled in. The other part of it is Ayton is 6,600 and could be just a smash center play in this spot. I think I'm going to prioritize just having like 10% of Ayton. I've already worked out a couple of pivots in that late night hammer that you kind of have that you would be able to like swap onto Giddey. You'd be able to swap along a number of different things for Houston with Jae'Sean Tate, with the amount of Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood. There's ways and paths that you're going to have players in your lineups that should make it easy to maneuver out of those shares of Ayton. But in the event that you get stuck with Ayton out you get him ruled in and you get stuck with Kaminsky in your lineups, you could be in a lot of trouble. So I don't think he's nearly worth the risk that he would have been on the slate where I was kind of like asking like Jalen Smith or him to be the guy.
Yeah, I have DeAndre Ayton in 15% of my lineups right now. I think that a couple of things here. If he plays, I think he, particularly on DraftKings, he's really underpriced for that matchup. So I think that's something that's appealing. Then number two, also, I would like to be able to get to some of these guys like JaVale McGee, Frank Kaminsky, if we see Ayton ruled out, because nobody's going to roster them at this point. Everybody's locking onto all these other cheap value plays, and for good reason. And also, a lot of these value plays are in games that start early. We've got the 76ers game starts at 7. The Utah game starts at 7:30, and a lot of the roster spots for people are already going to be taken up. So I'm going to be using some of my roster spots on Ayton right now, just for the hopes of either number one getting him in, or then number two, just the flexibility to pivot off of him. As for other centers, is there anybody else that we have not yet touched on today that you are getting to any kind of meaningful amount of exposure at center? Because we've hit on all of my guys already.
Yeah, you brought up Şengün. I think that's kind of a sharp play. At 15% of him over on DraftKings, he's 4,100. I just think that's a really low tag for him there. He has the power forward center eligibility, I believe. Also, let me just double check. He has that over on. Yeah, he does over on FanDuel. So that's also going to be a piece that I get to there. I don't want any of the Al Horford. I'm not going to go crazy chasing that. I think I had 8% of my last run over on DK, and I doubt I get anywhere close to that here in my last run. Let's see. Anything else for center? I don't have anything else. I think it's pretty consolidated at the top. You should be able to get up to the Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid tier with pretty much ease. And then if you're not, Ayton and Şengün, those are the two.
All right. I think that kind of covers everything from this slate, from the players' side, the injury situation. That's still some stuff that needs to come out. Guys, we haven't done it already. I've not hawked for likes, haven't asked for subscriptions yet. Do us a favor and do that. We've got all kinds of content over on the YouTube channel. And also, we still have tonight NBA after NBA Live Before Lock. There's the NFL Live Before Lock show. Also, don't forget that you can get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. That'll get you access to everything that you need to make some money playing DFS. Also, if you're only interested in NBA, you get an NBA weekly package for $16.95 or our $4.95 NBA Weekly Express package. So go check out Awesemo Plus if you've not already done that, and definitely something that Eric and I both use in our process to help us build lineups. Now, I want to go over to the ownership because I want to see what has happened with these Sixers guys. We have got an ownership update 2 minutes ago. Have you looked at it yet, Eric?
Yeah, I just looked at it here. I'm finishing up my DK. I just finished FanDuel.
Okay. All right, so I'll go over some of the updated ownership for some of these guys while you're finalizing your lineups. My lineups are all set and ready to go. Shake Milton is projected for 33% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Milton is projected for 19.6% ownership. That seems low for me in terms of an ownership projection for Milton when you consider how highly he's projected on DraftKings. I'll add this in though. This news broke so late in the day that I'm not sure that many people are going to be able to swap on the Shake Milton. We right now have him projected. I get up the ownership, but that is making him the third most popular play over on DK. We've got Cade Cunningham 1, Anthony Davis 2, Shake Milton 3, Matisse Thybulle coming in 4th. I wouldn't be surprised if Milton's ownership comes in a little bit lower than that, just from a standpoint of, hey, this news came out really late. How much time does this give people to actually update all their lineups? I'm not sure that he actually gets to that number. Now, with that said, I thought the same thing was going to happen with Korkmaz the other day, and then everybody rostered him. So, but this news came out. Well, this was like 6:48 Eastern time. The news came like 12 minutes before that game started. So I don't have any reservations about playing Shake Milton at 33% ownership. Safe to assume, Eric, as you're updating your lineups, you are over 33% Shake Milton.
I have 100%.
Oh, all right. That's a ballsy number. I don't have that much, but I have more than 33%.
I'm kind of updating everything and just making sure I get this in. There we go. Last run.
TikTok 30 seconds. If you don't get it,
I got it.
You got it this time?
Oh yeah.
I was going to say if you don't get it updated on this time, you could go invoice Doc Rivers and blame him, because it would definitely be him to blame. But looks like he got in on time, and with plenty of time to spare. There was still 20 seconds left here, so show's about to wind down. Eric, your lineups are uploaded. Anything you want to say to the people before we sign off for the night?
Not at all. Shake Milton, play basketball, please.
There we go. Shake Milton, play basketball, and who knows, maybe we'll get that Joel Embiid. Something crazy happens. He only plays like 26 minutes.
Baby. That was fun to update that all.
And you got it in, and it's this thing too, where at least from my standpoint, it's kind of a win-win, because obviously we're friends. You get your lineups in on time. I like to see that, but if you don't, it usually creates for good YouTube content. So it's whatever. No matter what, I feel like we're winning here. Guys, thank you very much for watching. We're at Lock. Good luck tonight. Like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, watch the NFL Live Before Lock show later.